please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, we'll call the July 6th Select Board meeting to order. There's one change to the agenda, just a minor thing. On the Select Board reports and comments at the very end, we normally put the short-term rental work group after committee reports because Melissa and Don weren't weighing in on that. So we're going to switch that back. We're going to do the short-term rental work that first and then do committee reports. So just a small change there. Before we get into announcements, I wanted to have a moment of silence for Jack Gardner, someone that we recently lost. And then afterwards, if anybody would like to say some words about their memories of Jack, that would be great. Thank you. Libby, you had some really nice things to say about Jack today.
I have so many things to say about Jack.
Maybe try that one.
There are many things to say about Jack, all good. When I first moved to Nantucket, when I was going into 6th grade, he was my bus driver, me and my siblings. And he always was extremely supportive of me as I moved through town government. He was basically my go-to for, Jack, what do you think about this? Or Jack, what happened back in, 1975 with whatever? And he knew the answers to everything. He was such a gentle and friendly, helpful person, never sought out recognition, just provided public service to provide public service and give back to the community that he loved so much. He is really going to be missed. He came to almost every select board meeting, even after he came off the board for a long time. And I'll miss, he hasn't been here for a little while, but I'll miss his presence a lot. So condolences to his family and very, very good memories.
Erica.
So I got to know Jack a little bit better as the town manager's liaison to the traffic safety work group. And I used to love it when Jack would come by the office and we'd be able to talk about some things. And then he would go on these tangents. And then I would, like, one day we were talking and he was just telling me about his life. And it was so amazing and varied. And like, I didn't realize that he had started Poets Corner Press. I didn't realize that he had been a police officer. I mean, I used to call him about certain questions about the town because he just seemed like he knew so much. He was such a wealth of knowledge. But really listening to him tell the story of his life was fascinating. And I'll really cherish that time with him. And I'm gonna miss seeing him parked on his car right on Main Street, like at Federal Street, just kind of checking things out all the time. And he was a special guy, for sure.
Thank you, Erica. Anybody else in the crowd? I didn't know Jack very well, but my first year on the select board, I was a little nervous. And I walked by him. He was sitting on the bench of the hub. And I said hi, I knew who he was. And he said, how's things going? And I said, of course, I, postured like, oh yeah, it's great. And then we sat down. I just got to hear about his experience on planning. And he always, whenever I reached out, he'd always be very kind and answer all my questions, especially that first year of the select board. And anytime I would see him, I would try to, pick his brain because he knew so much, but he was always very kind and nice to me. All right. Thank you, everyone. Announcements, Libby?
This meeting is being audio and video recorded, and I think Erica, do you want to read the current 2022 committee vacancies?
Sure. So we were very fortunate. We actually filled, or I should say the select board filled a lot of seats at the annual appointments. We do have some that do remain vacant, and we are advertising for those seats. We have 2 seats on the Agricultural Commission expiring 2023, 2 more seats on the Agricultural Commission expiring 2025, 1 seat on the on the Contract Review Committee expires 2025. I will note that the former chair did submit her application for that, but it was late. So she'll be considered this round. Finance Committee, 1 seat expires 2025. One of the members who was previously on it had applied late, but we also have 2 other applicants who've put their name in. HDC Associate, 1 seat, term expires 2025. Nobody put their name in for that yet. Tree Advisory Committee, 2 seats, terms expire 2025. We're still looking for people for that. And the Zoning Board of Appeals alternate, 1 seat, term expiring 2025. The incumbent did submit his application late, so he will be considered too. But if anybody wants to put their name in for any of these committees for consideration, please do. The deadline is this Friday at noon. We've advertised this in the newspaper. We've put it on the agenda in accordance with our committee appointment policy. We're going to have the applicants' names and applications in the board's agenda packets on July 20th and August 3rd. And then the board is slated to make appointments after allowing the applicants to speak on their applications at your August 17th meeting.
Thank you, Erica. Select board announcements, comments. I just have one to Melissa. I don't have my computer, Melissa. I can't see you. So if you're raising your hand, I've asked Dawn and Erica or just say something. Normally, I'm always keeping my eye on you and the public who's raising their hands digitally. So I just want to tell Melissa that. And we'll have to do roll call today because Melissa's remote on every vote. Any other comments, announcements from select board members? Nope. Okay. There's no follow-up comments from prior select board meetings. I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago, Mr. Bender came to public comment, and we are working on a response, and the departments are meeting. Just want to let you know. And then next up is public comment. I know there might be a lot of people here tonight for public comment. I want to make sure everybody is heard and that nobody goes on too long. So I will be timing you with might be a dog bark or something on the 3 minutes for public comment. So once you hear that, just wrap it up, please. I know a lot of you have been called here tonight to speak, so we're ready to hear you. And I saw a couple hands go up, so people can line up or just step on up. Just please state your name at the beginning.
Yep. My name is Tom Montgomery, 33 North Liberty Street. I'm a member of the Nantucket Historical Commission, but I'd like to address the board tonight as a private citizen. Why did this advisory commission need a shakeup? If the select board or the planning board doesn't like their advice, they don't need to follow it. By removing a key leader of the historical commission, they prevent the advice from being brought forward. This shakeup appears to be all about silencing voices of preservation. This board got rid of Rayport and appointed a person who has barely any experience with Nantucket, let alone architecture, history, or historic preservation. Rayport was endorsed and supported by her entire board. The select board received recommendations to reappoint Rayport from multiple members of the historical commission. They also received letters supporting Rayport from historians Betsy Tyler and Dr. Francis Katunen. Why did they decide to keep these letters secret? Shouldn't these recommendations actually matter? When Nantucket joined the Certified Local Government Program, the town pledged to appoint commissioners with qualifications and credentials in history and preservation. This is specified in an agreement with the town, the Massachusetts Historical Commission, and the federal government. Commissioners should be appointed based on their knowledge and commitment to preservation. What could possibly be the argument for appointing a person with no experience, who knows little or nothing about Nantucket or historic structures or preservation law or planning? This is an attack on preservation on Nantucket. The select board is cutting off the head of the historical commission and hoping it goes away or stops being effective. This commission was not overreaching its mission, nor was its conduct or the conduct of the chair inappropriate in any way. If the select board members were advised that it was, they aren't being told the truth. This was a political hit job motivated by people who want to silence Rayport because she's capable, smart, and not afraid to speak her mind. What kind of a town is this that pushes out talented people who are excelling at civic leadership? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Tom. You come over here. We'll just go back and forth.
Hello? Did that work? Okay. Okay, so I'm just going to read a letter that I was going to submit to the newspaper, and sort of thought, well, I don't really think anyone's taking any of it seriously anyway, so I sort of thought I wouldn't. But when it came to my attention that there was going to be public comment tonight around this, excuse my voice, please, I thought I'd at least read it. Oh, Campbell Sutton, citizen voter. I would like to publicly thank the chair of the planning board, Mr. John Trudell, for supporting my application to fill the vacated seat on the planning board. Due to my experience as an active alternate over the past 4 years, I felt I was the best candidate to hold the seat until the next election cycle, at which time those wishing to run could in a fair and balanced way. Instead, the appointing boards felt it appropriate to put their fingers on the electoral scale and appoint their favored future candidate, Mr. Joe Topham, to the seat. Because, as Mr. Iverson essentially pointed out in his remarks to the INM, he's proven himself to be one of us. I'll explain that in a little bit. And that's important to remember in the analysis of recent dismissals. Ms. Rayports from the Historical Commission, Ms. Phillips from Concom, and yes, even mine as planning board alternate. As concerned caring citizen voters of Nantucket, each of us has exercised our democratic rights by taking actions and/or strong positions at town meeting and elsewhere that the members and/or staff of these boards found to be in opposition to either the status quo or their desired outcomes. Think NP&EDC reforms by Ms. Rayport, SBPF compliance demands by Ms. Phillips, and for me, anything from not supporting rezoning via citizen petition or expansion of tertiary square footage on smaller lots to challenging the quintupling of signatures required to submit a citizen's petition. I think we all need to remember that one's appointment and continued service on a board, commission, and/or committee is at the pleasure of the select board, plain and simple. Not the will of the voters, not the support of citizens, not the desires or qualifications of the applicant. It's whether you're a good fit for their team. In the end, it's about approval. And as Mr. Burns, previous transportation director, pointed out to me, if you want to have your thoughts, ideas, concerns heard, then you have to be on the board, commission, or committee. So it saddens me that the louder voices for sustainable growth with community at the center are removed in favor of those who will continue to support and promote unrestrained development with consumption and financial gain at the core. I just want to explain the thing with Mr. Iverson, because I didn't want that to become like some red herring people went after. I believe some of the comments that were made had to do with him, Mr. Topham, and this is nothing against any candidates or applicants or anything else. I believe the comments were his time, 6 years on the Conservation Commission showed that he could keep his head above water. And I felt that that showed a lack of, well, I don't know if it's understanding of the qualifications of the other applicants that have also kept their head above water in financial offices far greater and higher up in corporate land than the select board and the seats that we have available in this town. So it just all points to, if you're going to go with what the team wants and your voice is going to be heard that way, then you're going to be reappointed. And if you're not, then you're not. And I get it. I actually didn't really expect to be reappointed because of the work that I've been doing outside of the committee. So I sort of knew that was coming. It's why I applied for both positions. I wanted it to be made to me very clearly from the board that regardless of what position came up on any committee, I would not be considered for it because of my strong opinions that I bring to town meeting. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sutton. Can I please ask everyone to stay within the 3 minutes in respect for other people who are waiting in line? Thank you. I didn't want to cut Ms. Sutton off, but please, if you hear her, just try to wrap it up. Georgia, over to you. Oh. Can you help?
Does that count in my 3 minutes, Jason?
No, haven't started.
I was thinking the same thing.
No. I'm just trying to keep it a standard so everybody has enough time to speak. Some people might have to leave. Uh-oh.
Why don't you come over here?
Why don't we just line up over here?
Charles, why don't we just put that away for the night?
We'll just use this one. Yeah.
Afraid to touch it. Thank you. I thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I have to state my strenuous objection to your refusal to reappoint Hillary Hedges Rayport to the Nantucket Historical Commission. Our commission has the function.
Could you state your name, Georgia?
Okay, sorry. I am strenuously objecting to your refusal to reappoint Hillary Hedges Rayport to the Nantucket Historical Commission. Our commission has the function of protecting Nantucket's historical character, which for most people means preserving the architecture, streetscapes, historic fabric, its sidewalks and cobblestones, everything that makes it Nantucket. Nantucket has over 800 federal period and earlier houses. They've been lived in for over 250 years. We are not a museum. You all know this. We are a living community of historic houses. They are what give us our unique character. And although we have beautiful beaches, so do many other places in New England. What brings people here to our expensive island is our extraordinary historic character. Thankfully, we've protected half of our open spaces, but the half we have not protected seems to be under intense development pressure. And that makes it much more important to protect what we do have and to keep it from becoming just about like every other place. So under Hillary Rayport's energetic and expert guidance, our commission has been extremely productive in its first 3 years in helping the town figure out the best way to protect that character. We have consulted experts, we've listened to them, and we've issued reports on laying cobblestones, on protecting sidewalks, on saving historic pavements and bricks, on historically appropriate roundabouts, on excessive sidewalk signage. I mean, it's hard to imagine what else anybody could have achieved in that short period of time, and it's attributable to Hillary's expertise and energy and basic intelligence. Most importantly, we achieved this certified local government status, a qualification that entitles the town to receive tens of thousands of state and federal funds for preservation purposes. That CLG status requires that our commission continue to contain members with the qualifications that Hillary Rayport possesses, and frankly, our newest member does not possess to the same degree, if any. So why was it that the select board just at that moment chose to decapitate us? Why? I mean, it's just baffling. My question is, what more powerful interest can be at work than the common interest in historic preservation that determines why people come here? Jason has said he voted for what would be the best team, but we were the best team, as evidenced by our extreme productivity. I have long admired many of you on this board for your dedication to Nantucket's best interests. I still admire you for that, but I am deeply shocked and very, very disappointed in this decision, and I urge you to rectify it immediately. Thank you.
Thank you, Georgia. You please state your name.
Val Oliver.
Thanks, Val.
Today, I'm requesting, please, that offshore wind turbine development be included on the next select board agenda for public discussion. The town, through its offshore wind work group, is currently in negotiation with the next project up for approval, Mayflower Wind, relating to the harmful effects and mitigation for such. I'm asking, please, before any more agreements are signed, the public needs to be informed not only of the impacts of the first two projects, but of the cumulative effects of the entire wind lease area. Offshore wind development in Massachusetts and the entire United States is moving at a very rapid pace. The all-in government approach to fast-track the approval of these power generation plants is leaving many communities like ours having to play catch-up to protect environments, our marine environments, fisheries, and tourism economies. Nantucket is, however, in a unique position. We're not only in close proximity to the first approved project, we're also the second oldest and largest contiguous National Historic Landmark in the US. Tremendous hope is being marketed that offshore wind will be the climate salvation needed to stave off ocean warming and climate change, but the data provided by the wind companies in their own construction and operation plans admit adverse effects are probable. The appendices that correspond to air emissions, visual impacts, impacts on marine life are confidential to the public. The ADLS navigational lighting for marine and aircraft interests are promised but not developed yet by their own admission on their own websites. The fabrication required to implement this energy includes enormous amounts of cement, steel, fiberglass, electromagnetic cables, rare earth minerals, oils, chemicals, construction and operating noise, decades of large vessel traffic, giant substations, and harm to endangered marine life and birds. How can this construction process not be harmful to our island environment, especially at this magnitude? The Good Neighbor Agreement requires an informed public. The parties agree to ensure that Nantucket residents and visitors are informed of the benefits of the project, receive opportunities to learn about and engage in the projects, and address concerns as they arise. Through outreach programs from my group, Nantucket Residents Against Turbines, it's become clear that the public, including various town boards, are uninformed about not only the Vineyard Wind project, but 6 other lease areas currently in various stages of development. Public misconceptions I've heard are the turbines will not be visible. The turbines will eliminate the need for the third cable. There will be beneficial effects to our electricity rates. There will be no harm to marine life. The turbines will not be visible in our night skies, and there will be lots of jobs created, and most popular, these are federal waters, so there's nothing we can do about them anyway. These are not a done deal. It's time for the public to receive an update and for the town to hear the concerns of its citizens for the record. Please, let's look before we leap and try to protect our island from the rapid industrialization of the ocean and the beauty that surrounds us. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Val.
Hi, George Butterworth. I just wanted to speak in support of the members of the Historical Commission who objected to what happened last week. I don't have the same background with the commission that they do, but I was just stunned to see 4 members of the board vote to essentially decapitate the commission, which basically is kind of telling the commission to go sit in the corner and be quiet, as far as I can see. I don't have the inside memo. I don't know, other than what I read in the paper last week, what's going on, but I was just stunned to see this happen. It just seemed like a huge power play to tell the commission we don't like what you're doing, and when it seemed like they were doing a really good job, to someone who's an outsider just following the commission and very impressed with their work. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Butterworth.
Carl Borchert, 14 Burn Swamp Lane. I've just come out to speak in favor of reconsideration of the vote to remove Ms. Rayport from the Historical Commission. I've served on the Energy Study Committee, the Coastal Management Plan Work Group, and the Planning Board as an alternate, and I'm currently back on the Planning Board as an alternate, so I know a thing or two about town government. Ms. Rayport, I don't know her personally, but I've watched things that she's done in the last few years with her commission. She possesses a very interesting and rare combination of educational credentials, leadership qualities, a strong work ethic, and getting things done. It's taken me quite a few years to understand that people really care passionately about issues. I care passionately about issues as well. But I think this is a mistake to take her off that commission. I think you should seriously reconsider putting her back on it. There is a precedent for this with Ashley Arisman on the Concom a few years ago. So please reconsider your vote, and please consider putting her back on the commission. I think she's an asset to the community, and I think she could provide a lot more years of very productive work in historical preservation. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl.
Hi, I'm Clement Jerkes. I live in Wisconsin, and I am on the Historic Commission. I was very, very proud to serve on the Historic Commission for the past 3 years. I enjoyed working with my team, and especially with Hillary. I was reappointed by you, the Select Board, and I appreciate that. But I can say that I am not the most qualified person to be on the Historic Commission. Hillary Hedges Rayport is. She has been our leader and has done a remarkable job with her research, her investigations. I think you've heard a lot of people speak to her qualities and her abilities. So I know you perhaps heard this and read it in the paper, but if there's any way that my votes could be given to Hillary, that would make me very happy. I enjoyed working with her. I will continue to work with her in any way I can. So I just wanted to make that comment. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, Angus McLeod. I've served as Vice President of the Nantucket Historical Commission for the past 3 years. I'm proud of all the work that we've accomplished in those relatively short amount of time. And I apologize for the struggle to read. I raced out the door without my glasses. But the work that we've accomplished has been in spite of all the associated delays and complications with the pandemic. We've had the good fortune to have had a diverse group of preservation-minded individuals who have worked harmoniously in fulfilling the mission of the Nantucket Historical Commission. The individual who's most deserving of credit of our accomplishments is Ms. Rayport. Of the 5 separate preservation focused boards that I've sit on, Hillary stands out as the best educated, most dedicated, and effective volunteer I've had the pleasure of working with. She's fair and she's sincere. So why did the Select Board give her the boot? What are the reasons for dismissing Rayport? What is the justification? What is the logic? I don't see any, unless it's some specific personal targeting. This is the action of this Select Board, I believe, was reckless, and it's not good for the commission, and it's certainly not good for Nantucket. I hope that the Select Board will reconsider their appointment and return Hillary to her chair position. I appreciate your time, and thank you.
Thank you, Angus.
My name is Richard Raisman, 39 Low Beach Road. I'm George's husband. And I wanted to just tell a little story. Remember when Georgia first applied to be on the Historical Commission, she had, the day before, she had a perforated colon and had an emergency operation in the hospital. And she was just coming out of her anesthesia when she remembered there was a deadline to get her application submitted. She made me go back to the house, get the application. I filled it out in the hospital. She dictated it to me. I brought it back and I submitted it, luckily, on the day that it was due. And I heard some stories here before about people who missed the deadline. But that's how excited Georgia was to get on this commission. Also, I want to thank the Select Board for what is a thankless task, for keeping Nantucket a well-functioning community, for sitting through endless meetings with virtually no compensation and listening to people like me, and being criticized and getting complaints. We, the citizens, rely on the Select Board to make decisions which benefit the citizens of Nantucket. I'm here to ask that you rethink your decision on Hillary Hedges' report. My view is that returning Hillary to the chairmanship of the commission will be to the benefit of the citizens of Nantucket. I have no way of documenting what I'm about to say next, but I surmise that if a vote for Hillary was a secret ballot, she would have been voted in. My guess also is that most of you, if not all of you, agree that retaining Hillary as the chairmanship is the right thing to do for Nantucket. I personally am extraordinarily disappointed that the leadership of our town has determined that the best course was to defenestrate the chairman of the NHC.
Thank you, Richard.
Good evening. My name is Richard Ray. I am retired. I was the health director for the town of Nantucket for 37 years. Most of the environmental regulations that are on the books for public health, I initiated. Many of the fertilizer regulations I initiated. I'd like to turn public comment around here for a moment, because I'd like to hear why, as the health director previously, what qualifications did I not have in that I only got one vote for the Board of Health? I'm waiting. Thank you. That's what I expect.
Thank you, Richard.
Good evening, I'm Kathy Ward, and I'm going to be, I'm still on Silver Street, and I just want to be very brief. There's been a lot of comment tonight about the pros and cons of a lot of different decisions that the Select Board makes, and I think what would be helpful for me is to understand what process, when you have closed doors and you're having these discussions, what is your process? What helps you make the decisions of who belongs on these committees? Because it could be visual tonight that some of the people who are experts in the field are not necessarily considered for some of these reappointments. And having that kind of talent, that volunteer talent, is so important to this island. This island operates just like you do at the volunteer to make this town run and to preserve it. It's important to have the talent on those boards that know what they're doing. And so I just, would ask you if there's some way in some of your communications to let us know how you make the decision. What are the points that you tick off as you make a decision of versus one candidate versus another? So thank you for your time.
Thanks, Kathy.
I don't know if you were going to answer those things because I got a totally different subject. But anyway, Clifford Williams, 18 Williams Street. I was going to address the Easy Street bulkhead area. I know we've done a bunch of work there for the last 10 years, and I have a boat down there, and every time I think, well, when they're done, they're going to clean that area up and make it pretty, and it never happens. A lot of people go down there and take pictures and sit around, and you look down at low tide and it's pretty ugly. So I don't know if we could maybe consider creating a program to clean that area up. I'd even help you, and maybe even dump some pretty sand down there so it'd be nice and clean instead of mucky. And if you're down there during the deluge the other day, all the street runoff goes there, which creates a lot of that. So I don't think we'd be dredging the harbor or anything like that. I don't know if we'd get a special permit, but it's basically all the runoff from the streets that's filling up the Easy Street area. Thanks.
Thanks, Cliff.
Good evening, Megan Perry. Try to be as quick as I possibly can with regards to this.
You can pull the microphone down a little bit.
Is that better?
Yep.
All right. I'm just trying to wrap my head around how this elected board chose to appoint members to boards and commissions. As an elected board, you're tasked to represent our community, our entire community. And I'm curious as to why it appeared as though education of the subject matter and experience was overlooked for many of the important boards and commissions during the last appointment process. While learning on the job is acceptable, maybe for scooping ice cream or making coffee, I don't feel that learning on the job is acceptable for many of the important island boards and commissions, such as Concom, the Historical Commission, or the Board of Health. I'm curious as to why members of the community who freely volunteer their time and have the education and expertise that would be needed for these boards and commissions were overlooked or passed over for people with little to no experience in the field that they were looking to represent. I'm all in favor of new blood on boards. I'm all in favor of people volunteering to help out. But I would appreciate if the community members looking to be on the boards and the commissions, if they had the best qualifications possible, those are the ones that should be appointed. When I read some of the applications, I was baffled. An applicant with 37 years of experience in the health department field, yet they were overlooked. Makes me wonder why. Was it their name? Was it their experience? Was it how they've spoken out before? When members have a law degree in the exact topic in question and are well-versed in the Wetlands Protection Act, yet they were also overlooked. Was it their name? Was it their previous decision-making that this elected body did not like? Similarly, what has happened currently before almost this exact same board, the sitting chair with extensive education and experience in the subject matter of the board or commission was ousted for someone with little to no experience. I think we can all remember the attempted shakeup with the Concom. Did the same happen with the Historical Commission? Again, I wonder why. Is it time to have applicants not put their names on their applications and have appointments maybe go based on most qualified applicant? Maybe just education, experience, and expertise is what we need. Is it time for these boards or commissions to become elected positions so the people of the community can make the decision rather than just the 5 elected select board members? These are all questions that I've been pondering and just frustrated. So thank you guys very much for your time.
Thank you, Megan.
Hello, good evening. My name is Ann Duez. I live at 5 Mill Street. I am speaking to you as a citizen. I have not applied for any boards. I have thought about doing so, but when I see a sign hung out in front of the select board that says independent thinkers need not apply, that really turns me off. And I fear that it probably turns off a lot of other people who might be qualified, interested, able, with time on their hands and commitment and passion for Nantucket to help make a difference, to lead this island forward into a very murky future. We need people. We cannot afford to hang out a do not enter sign on our door. And I'm ashamed of the fact that 4 of you actually did that. I'm also ashamed of the fact that 3 of you slapped over 1,000 voters in the face and did not select Emmy Kilvert for planning board. Like everybody else, I don't get it. What's really going on here? How can we expect to go forward with a healthy democracy and a well-functioning town government when we don't want good people to be part of it? So I would add my voice To the many others who are here, who have written letters, which, by the way, are not published, and I'm not sure why that is either, and from the others that you'll probably hear from with their hands up via digital communication, we're wondering why. And we would like you, I would like you, along with the others, to reconsider your decision. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ann. Is there any?
I just want to make one point. Ms. Duas actually emailed the office today and asked that question, and I responded to her, so she must not have seen my email. We do not put letters in the packet that are not on the agenda. This is not an agenda item, so that's just not what we do.
I think some of the, maybe it's not Ann's question, but some people, the recommendations on the letters we got for or against people, why wasn't that put in the packet during our votes? And that wasn't in our, when we redid the whole process, we didn't put that in there as need to be. But I think maybe this fall we should look at, do we want to do that next round? Is that going to defer people from running? Is it better for transparency? So I think in the fall or whenever's a good time, that we should relook at that as an additional, we should have a discussion with the select board if we want to do that. Was there anybody with their hand up this way? Okay.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Michelle Elze, and I live at 55 Union Street. I'm here to express my dismay on the non-reappointment of Hillary Rayport. I have served 2 terms on the board of the Nantucket Preservation Trust, and I just have one point to make about historic preservation. Historic preservation needs to be advised and handled by people who understand historic preservation. It doesn't occur on a sliding scale. A wonderful analogy is the restorations of paintings and artworks. If paintings and artworks are not properly restored, they lose their value completely. An auction house will not take them, a museum will not accept them. And our town and our historic landmark status is something that needs to be protected properly by people who are qualified and understand how to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. We go to Holly, and then after that, we'll go to the remote. Erica.
Good evening, Select Board. Holly Backus, Preservation Planner for the town, staff liaison to both the HDC and the Historical Commission. I kind of want to just give a little brief introduction because sometimes some people don't seem to know my qualifications, so I'll go through that. I was first hired in 2015 as a land use specialist for the town after a decade of experience being a land use planner in South Carolina. As a multi-generation Nantucket native, I have contractors on both sides of my family, including my father, and essentially grew up with a hammer in my hand, understanding architecture at a young age. I knew at 16 years old, after interning at the Nantucket Preservation Trust, that I wanted to pursue a career in preservation. I earned a double Bachelor's of Science degree in Historic Preservation and Art and Architectural History from Roger Williams University, and I hold a graduate certificate from the University of Florida's Preservation Institute, Nantucket's PIN program, the oldest field school in preservation in the country, who's celebrating their 50th year this summer. I had the opportunity to teach with the PIN students this last week on the history of Nantucket's HDC, the 4th year in a row, and it's a complete honor to be able to do that. It's important to point out that the town of Nantucket, this board, town administration, the planning director, all understood the importance of preservation and created the first ever preservation planner position in 2019, in which I applied and was hired, so thank you. This was after I helped advocate to this board the importance of having a preservation commission, bringing back the historical commission. And I know the former chair was also here as well. Instead of creating another commission, another board, another committee, we had a functioning outlet for that to look at our preservation related issues. But it's also important to set the record straight. As one of the very first reconstituted Nantucket Historical Commission meetings, July 19th, 2019 to be exact, where Mary Bergman, now the executive director of NPT, was once a member of the Historical Commission, presented the advantages of the town becoming a certified local government. No one at that meeting but myself and Mary knew what CLG was and what the benefits to the town could be. Speed up to 2020 and the pandemic hit, excuse me. Non-essential items obviously were not a priority. You all had a pandemic to work through. However, the former chair championed the town and select board, along with myself, on the benefits of the certified local government. One important note is that Nantucket Historical Commission is not only part of the CLG. The HDC is part of that designation as well, something that the newspaper doesn't include. They are a local preservation legislative body due to their special act from 1955. In early 2021, this board blessed the request on March 19th, 2021. The National Park Service concurred with MHC on their recommendation for the town of Nantucket to become a certified local government pursuant to Section 101C of the National Historic Preservation Act. We have a required MOU between the commissions, the state, and myself as your CLG coordinator. Thank you, Select Board. This effort has allowed us to apply for and receive federal funding allocated by Congress to MHC. MHC is obligated to give 10% of their federal funding to CLGs, a category we now have. For fiscal year 21, we received $22,500. In fiscal 22, we received $20,000. Both of these are matching grants to update our historic resources, an effort the town has not been able to accomplish in many years. We're currently working with our consultant on the survey plan for the entire island and a pilot survey of the 1717 fish lots. The next project will be to finish the lots and go into the Brant Point area. And I look forward to working with our consultants on this. This was an effort that the Historical Commission members helped with, of course. My point is, for all of that, changing of commissioners, board members, committee members are all part of government. Something that I learned in my 17 years so far as a planner in local government. I'm here to make a point that preservation is still alive. It's well on Nantucket. With public and private partnerships with MPT, MMA, PIN, NHA, and others. And I look forward to other accomplishments that we can achieve for our historic island community. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Holly. What's that, Dawn? Okay.
Eve Messing, resident. So we've heard everything, we've heard all the valid points. I just want to focus specifically when we're talking about how important experience is, and it just doesn't come overnight. It's over time, and have somebody who knows how to apply it and get results like Hillary has. And then there needs to be sort of maybe a way out. When we talked about DeMolina, she's barely been here. She got here just before the pre-pandemic. So what has she been here, 4 years? And
We just make sure we don't use other people's names.
No?
Yeah, you can say whoever was appointed.
Whoever was appointed, okay. Well, that person who has been here not very long at all. And if it's been during then the pandemic, I mean, the island's shut down, so even the opportunity to learn about the island was cut in half. So it's half of time that she just hasn't been here long enough. I mean, I'm sure she's a wonderful person, but definitely not long enough, without enough experience and a master's degree in a language and culture has nothing to do with restoration and historical restoration. That's all I have to say. And I'm sorry if I mentioned the name. I didn't realize that was a bad thing.
I think it was more of knocking down another person. That's what we're considering. Public comment, you can say whatever you want, but I would just like us to keep it on, not disparaging someone. Can we go to whoever's got their hand up online? And how many do we have?
We have one up right now. There was another one previously. This is Diane Coombs.
Okay. Let's go through those and then we'll go back.
Hello,
We can hear you. Go ahead.
this is Diane Coombs, member for many years of the HTC. I've lived in Nantucket for 52 years, seen it grow, change, and have taken an active part in its growth and development. I served as a selectman amongst lots of other things. I have worked with Hillary for the time that she has been on the board. I was one of the two original people who started this board a long time ago, and it failed at that time. It was again carried on by the chairman at that time. Then the chairman left because she couldn't get anything done, and it came on, and then there was two other chairmen, and then Hillary took it over. It has put this board together, and she has produced with the people on her board a remarkable amount of work to make Nantucket remain a historic island. If we lose our ability and designation as a historic island, we are then just another island from New Jersey. We have worked so many years to maintain the historic value of this island, and she has done everything. May not be things that the Board of Selectmen are thrilled with. It may be things that are for the island and not specific other issues, but she has done a job that has never been done to this extent before. I was curious in one of the remarks made in the newspaper that the Board of Selectmen appointed people with their qualifications. I wonder, do you have Hillary's qualifications? And do you have the other person who was appointed qualifications? And that same person not only was appointed to the Historic Commission, but she was appointed to the Planning Board. And I am completely stunned by that fact. Both boards are very important. They're not la-la boards that just have fun meeting. They are the thing that is going to save this island and its specifications. And I think that many people would perhaps request you to reconsider your choice of people because it is totally inappropriate, and everybody and group and board that work with the island, every one of them, with the exception obviously of the Board of Selectmen, back Hillary. So I would put my hand up for her also and ask for some serious reconsideration of what has happened. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. Anybody else online? Go ahead, Andy.
Thank you, members of the board. Andy Lowell, speaking as a resident. Many of us may be skeptical of the news today. Excuse me. The editorial in our local paper suggests appointments may be influenced by important people being disturbed by commission actions. If this is true, then we should all be disturbed. Nantucket is rich in history and wealthy in popularity. We can give thanks to the whaling and fishing industries for that. This same popularity from a well-preserved history has ultimately put an end to our traditional fishing industry. Our marina and waterfront are now boutiqued and fragrant and aesthetically pleasing, but lately the select board appointment process is smelling awfully fishy. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Anybody online, Erica? Any other public comment here tonight that's not on the agenda?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Hillary Rayport. I came here, I wasn't planning to speak. I do feel a bit like I'm at my own funeral, and I want to thank everybody who's made such really wonderful comments. I feel so appreciated. I've worked tremendously hard to resurrect the Historical Commission and get everything done that we've gotten done. It's all been in the interest of the town. And I am so grateful for all of the support and all the people who appreciate what we've done. It's been in our lane. It's been for the good of the town, and it's been according to our mission. And I can't help but think that, you know, when we participate in government and we try to make change, that it can really come back to roost, and it's sad. I've worked cordially and so appreciatively with the staff, with Holly. Thank you, Holly, for everything that you do for the commission and for preservation. It's also important to have a commission. You can't be a certified local government without a historical commission. And, you know, I brought a citizens warrant article that was not popular with planning, you know, and I brought it because I felt it was the right thing to do and it was important. And to the extent that that colored your confidence in my leadership on the Historical Commission, I think that's really unfortunate, because you should be looking at what we got done. And I hope you do rethink that, to give confidence to all the citizens who volunteer and also speak their conscience. Thank you.
Thank you, Hillary. Is there any other public comment here tonight that's not on the agenda? Anybody online?
I'll just make a quick comment. I want to thank Hillary and the commission for everything they've done. Their work was amazing. And for that, I thank them, and I hope they continue on. There was a couple that people that asked what we thought, or what, you know, were critical of me on some of my votes. And you can email me, mfee@nantucket.ma.gov, and I will answer you. You know, I don't always get it right, and I don't always do what people agree with. And so I know there was a couple of comments, not necessarily about this issue, but another, and I will explain my reasoning that if you contact me. Thank you.
Anybody else online? Erica? Okay.
Can I say something?
Yep.
I would just echo Matt that I would be happy to speak to anyone, and I have spoken to actually a number of people in this room about my reasoning, but I am not going to, in a public meeting, say anything disparaging about any candidates.
Thank you, Dawn. Okay, there's no new business that I am aware of. Approval of minutes, warrants, and pending contracts. I get a motion to approve minutes for June 22nd, approval of payroll warrants and treasury warrants.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor by roll call. Melissa, I'll always keep you last, so you know it's coming.
Okay.
Dawn? The motion to pass.
Motion to approve the minutes, warrants,
No,
and
no, it's already been there. Yay or nay?
yes.
Brooke?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Aye. Those pass unanimously. Approval of pending contracts for July 6th. I think there was one, if not two things that Libby was going to take us through or update us on.
Yes, I did want to mention a couple of the contracts. There's one in there, it's the second one down, it's a professional services agreement with Granicus. This is a vendor that we would like to engage to help begin our short-term rental registration process. There are some other services. We put their presentation that they had given us some time ago as we were working towards engaging a vendor to get our program going. It's in the packet, and on page 45, there is a pricing list. And I think Brian is hopefully out there, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we're doing all of the items except for one, which I can't remember which one that was. Was it rental activity monitoring?
It is
Yes.
Okay, so you'll see,
Not doing tax collection either.
oh, tax collection, yeah, right. So I think other than tax collection, and I'll have to subtract that out, it totals $125,263 minus $13,024 for the tax collection. And eventually we'll be collecting fees that will cover this contract, but we don't have those fees obviously in place yet. So this will have to be upfront money that Brian is in the process of determining the funding source for. And so I just wanted to mention this to you, that we're working to get the regulations in place and get this contract in place so that we can have a system ready to go on January 1, 2023, as per Article 39 that was approved at the 2022 annual town meeting.
Any comments or questions for Libby?
Yeah, just a question. Page 24, it was how big of a challenge? Did they determine how big a challenge it is, or they'll determine that as they go? We sort of had a complaints and a debate temperature and minor concern, problem, issue, crisis. When they made this presentation, was there any, have they done work? Have they determined where they think we are?
Page 20.
Is that page 24 of the packet?
24
or-
of our packet. On theirs, it was seven of theirs.
No, is it the graph that's got
Yeah.
problems, crisis?
Yeah.
So you're asking where are we on that?
Well, yeah, when they made the presentation, did they
No.
make it, didn't do that? Yeah.
No, I mean, they haven't been able to assess it yet because we don't have the data to show what it is. So I think the point of this particular slide is these are the types of things that will be maybe determined as the data is collected. Brian, is that your understanding?
That's a fair statement of how this was presented to us, yes.
Matt, I think it's either issue or crisis because the debate temperature is hot. We just don't know the other side yet.
Yeah, I was wondering if they told us, but yeah, I agree.
Brooke, did you have any comments? Okay. Nope. Thank you for putting that in the packet.
Yeah, I know it's, very much of a topic right now, so I wanted you to have as much information as possible. The only other contract I wanted to point out is on page 2. It's near the bottom. It's a professional services agreement for public works, horticultural services. DBA landscaping by J. Michael, $96,420. This is for townwide landscape maintenance services. This is a 3-month contract. We put out a bid several months ago that would be typically a 3-year landscaping bid. And Brian, you want to take it from here as to what happened after that?
So thank you, Libby. To the board. So we, as town manager noted, we put out a bid, I think back in March or so to start this contract. We received a bid protest after the bids were ready to be awarded, and in consultation with not only town council, but in my discussions with the Attorney General's office, it was very clear we were not going to win the bid protest. So we canceled the bid. We put it out a second time, making the requested changes to how we put it out to bid. We received 2 bids the second time around, and the low bid for 3 years was $630,000, which was just about double or a little more than double what the bids were the first time around. The low bidder did not include a bid bond, so they had to be rejected statutorily for the type of bid that we had put out. The second low bid was for $1.2 million, which we did not have $400,000 in the budget to do landscaping for the first fiscal year of the contract. So we rejected all of those bids as outlined in the procurement itself, and internally determined that because we needed to get services for July, August, and September, we put out a 3-month bid with the intent of continuing to review what is actually in the landscaping bid, with the intent to put it out and award a new 3-year contract, hopefully at a much lower price than we had received before, starting for October 1st and carrying on for 3 more years. So we're presenting to you today the low bid. There was only one bidder this time around, and the bid was just under $32,000 a month for the 3 months, totaling $96,420.
Any questions for Brian?
Yeah,
Sorry.
Thanks, Brian. I just wanted to point it out because we you may have noticed that some of the town-owned properties are looking pretty shabby because we haven't had a landscaper. So as you can see, hopefully you'll approve this because they've already started on this building, on this property here.
I have a question. Will this include other properties that we're unable to get to? Some, Coffin Park or Mill Hill or other places that we've had complaints about? Or is this just going to do the public buildings themselves? Is it going to also include places that the public frequent that are our responsibility?
It's basically most of the town-owned buildings, the Civil War Monument, 38 Westchester, 4 Fairgrounds, the town cemeteries, Children's Beach, Park area, 2 Bathing Beach Road, Lincoln Circle, Brant Point Circle, Winter Park, Coffin Park.
So it's hitting a lot of it.
Yeah, it's a lot. At first, I thought it was a lot until she read off the list.
And just a thank you for Brian and for Libby and staff for rebidding this and doing 3 months. And, I think sometimes the public process that's quote unquote in place to protect us has been kind of rigged against us. I think that the requirements that the bidders have to have, et cetera, lead to, $2.6 million sheds. And I think that the bidders know, they kind of know that they can bid high because everyone's so busy, no one's going to bid. And hey, if I get it, I'll figure out I'll put something on hold. And so I think that, I'm glad you found a way to get this at a reasonable cost. And I hope we do that in the future on some of these other things that have just been exorbitant. Thank you.
Hopefully the next time around, we'll be able to afford the landscaping for 3 years.
Yes.
Okay, anything else on contracts? Okay, is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor by roll call? Don?
Aye.
Brooke?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Jason, aye. That passes unanimously. Consent items, we have a couple here. For Human Services, for the Salt Marsh Center, we have a gift of $100 from Kermit and Priscilla Roosevelt, and a gift of $500 from Hal Miller. And then for the Natural Resources Department, there's a gift of $168 from Proud Port Inc. for the Oyster Restoration Program. Is there a motion to accept all gifts for the designated purposes with thanks to the donors?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor by roll call? Don?
Aye.
Brooke?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Jason, aye.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Somebody has their hand raised.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Electronically.
So I usually, it could be a previous item.
I don't know.
Yeah,
It's still up.
Can you go ahead?
Yeah.
Sorry about that. I don't usually have it in front of my computer in front of me.
She's muted, but I'm asking her to unmute.
Can you unmute if you can hear us?
We're trying to let Barbara Presta in, but she's muted. Barbara, can you hear us?
Yeah, it could be inadvertent, or maybe we missed it during the contracts.
We'll just go forward then.
Okay, so Barbara, if you can hear us, come back if you can.
Hands down.
Hands down.
I just put it down.
You did.
Oh.
Okay.
Well, if it pops back
I
up.
figure if she means it, she'll raise it.
Right.
Zoom management 101.
Just wait for one more second. Nothing? Okay. All right, well, on to public hearings. We'll open the public hearing to consider designating Macy Road, Nantucket as a one-way northeast bound from Chicago Street to Baltimore Street.
Mr. Chair, I think Ken might elaborate on this a little bit, but while he's coming up, we reviewed this with you a couple of months ago, and you all agreed to schedule this public hearing to make this road one-way. We're trying really hard to deal with a severe erosion issue out at the Nantucket Beach parking lot, and we've come up with a way to add a little bit more parking. We think that the traffic flow should go one way, not two ways, for less confusion and less impact on the unstable bluff in that area. Ken, do you want to add anything?
Not much. You've stated it fairly clearly. The issue is with the erosion, the parking lot has been reduced in size significantly. So the concern that we had was that when people came into the parking lot, they're going to have to be angled parking in there in one half of it, and the other half is going to be needed for turning around or traffic through because of the depth and the reduction in the width of the parking lot. So the idea was to be able to figure out the best way to be able to have traffic go through there so that you don't have people trying to come in and go out at the same point in time. So what we did as a part of that is that we resurveyed Macy Road. And what we discovered is that we would be able to use the full size of the road to its full width, create parking on the left-hand side, angled parking initially, and then parallel parking further up to be able to, in fact, provide a significant amount of additional parking there. And then by having it a one-way, we had a good traffic flow through there in terms of coming in off of Nantucket Road into the parking lot. And when you leave, go out so that you avoid the problem of all of the cars getting together trying to figure out which way to go in terms of leaving it. And it really makes a lot of sense, and it has worked really well. So we hope that you follow our recommendation in terms of approving this change. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. I'm sure we've been in contact with Nantucket Civic Association and groups. Like they approve it or are part of it.
They're not, their approval isn't required at all because it's all on town property.
Yeah, I know it's not.
However, I have been in contact with Nantucket representatives, yes,
Okay.
and I don't believe there's an issue with this.
No, and we've been in contact with the immediate neighbors, obviously,
Right.
because of the fact that our land actually goes further in off of the road to the left-hand side than where it is. So that's why we've had the split rail fence put in to make a clear delineation of where the road is. And we made sure that we didn't have any Concom problems or other issues with respect to it because it was all on land that was previously approved for this purpose by the Concom.
Okay. Erica?
I just want to note too that the process for changing a road to one-way requires a butter notification, and that did happen on June 14th. So everybody by certified mail.
Thank you. This is a public hearing. Is there anybody with their digital hand up? My eyes. Anybody?
No.
Anybody here? Public hearing? Okay. Is there a motion?
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor by roll call? Dawn?
Aye.
Brooke?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Jason? Aye. So the public hearing is closed. Pleasure of the board.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor by roll call? Dawn?
Aye.
Brooke?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Jason? Aye. That passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ken, and everybody who did a lot of work on that.
Quick comment. I went out and took a look at it. It looks great. The only question I have, maybe it's not for tonight, but it seems like it's tough to get down to that beach, but it isn't as bad as it was 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. I hope that there's some way at some point if we can get a ramp there or something, but that's a wish.
Yeah, it kind of is. We've discussed this extensively, almost every day, really, it comes up. And part of the problem is the bluff itself is not stable. So there's no real good, safe way to affix a ramp or any stairs to the bluff. It's very much undermined. There are also, there's debris in the bluff. There are cables, there are cement structures, things like that we're doing our best to cut off at the base of the bluff, but it's not totally a safe situation there. So we're struggling with, do we somehow figure out how to put a ramp or stairs there? But we're told by our coastal resiliency experts that there's not a good way to affix a ramp or stairs without causing additional damage to the bluff, which would then be possibly even more problematic because then there would ultimately be less parking. And do we want to invite more people to a beach where conditions aren't entirely safe, which is why we have signs up saying swim at your own risk and things of that nature. And there just isn't enough parking there.
Yeah. What I've seen a couple different times is people are going, if you're facing the water, they're going down the left side. They're climbing down, and I've seen young and fairly old people, and they are breaking down the dune. They're breaking down that area, and it's flattening out, and it is getting, they're going anyway. So the question, the question is, they're going to go a bunch of different places that have more danger, or can we find I hope that we can find a safe way to, to do a little bit if we can, but.
Anything else there? Okay, over to town manager's report.
Yeah, yes, but I'm starting with Shanta. So most of these are going to be verbal reports. So these are after 4th of July, post 4th of July reports from some of the town departments that were most involved in the town activity. So I think first off, we're going to have Culture and Tourism Director Shanta Blois Murphy give a bit of an update on how things went in her department. Shanta?
Thank you. We had a very positive 4th of July on my end. We were tasked with the children's beach activities, which went off without a hitch. In the morning of 4th of July, we had about 1,000 families, excuse me, participating down there at Children's Beach. And then we also had the return of about 200 in the evening at around 5 o'clock. I want to start also by saying thank you to all of the departments that really held my hand in making this 4th of July a success, and understanding that I was fairly new to the role. It was truly a collaborative effort on all of our parts. And we've spoken to quite a few people throughout the town. Thank you all for the feedback that you've given. We're definitely taking them into consideration as we prepare for next year's 4th of July. So thank you all.
Thank you so much, Chief Pittman. And he does have a little visual.
Good evening. We started out with the 4th of July weekend. What I put together for the board was some comparison numbers for prior years. We actually compared 2018 and 2019 to 2021 and 2022. We kind of forgot about 2020 because that was the missing year for COVID. And what we've learned is really our calls for service and our activities really were pretty similar during those periods of time. You can see in 2019, which was our busiest year as far as calls for service, we had 343 calls. This year we had 285. Where we did see an increase in the last couple of years versus pre-COVID was in the number of disturbance calls and the intoxicated persons calls. But those numbers are really statistically insignificant given the overall number of calls we've had. A lot of times what those intoxicated person calls are bar owners, establishments actually doing the right thing and calling us when they have intoxicated people showing up their bar trying to get in. So, I'm not too concerned about any of those stats. If we could go to the next page. One thing that we always look at is the number of calls for service that result in us having to take somebody into custody for whatever reason. And this one's arranged a little different. The blue column is 2019, the orange column is 2021, and the gray column is 2022. You can see where we're lower on all the 2022 numbers virtually than, with the exception of one warrant arrest. Again, it's a statistically insignificant thing. We were lower in the total in custodies for this year. And that's not for lack of trying. There were certainly people out there that were doing whatever they could to get our attention, but officers oftentimes find other remedies to resolve the situations whenever they can. We had assisting us this year 5 state police officers. 3 of them are assigned here for the summer. 2 additional troopers came over on the 4th to help us on the 4th of July so that we could address calls for service during the daytime and the beaches, and yet have enough staffing left to address the morning foot race, and then the fireworks into the evening. And all in all, I think it was a great, successful weekend. It was probably one of the most beautiful 4th of July days we've had. The fireworks were phenomenal. The crowds were phenomenal. They were large, but manageable. They were not disorderly. We had very few incidents at the beach. The lifeguards report on their beach counts, and keep in mind, this is just estimates and it's only on the town lifeguarded beaches, but our numbers appear to be about 27,430 persons went to the beach over the weekend. What we looked at was the day before and the day of and the day after the 4th of July for each of those years, except this year we looked at the 2 days before and then the 4th of July as being the tail, putting our numbers together so that we had some apples to apples. There were no real noteworthy events other than one apparent incident of road rage at Fairgrounds Road and Surfside. The reason I bring that up is because there's a lot of chatter on social media about it, but neither of the participants or in that incident reported anything to the police. So yeah, something might show up on social media, but that doesn't mean the police were involved. You really need to call us because it's very rare that we see it on social media in a timely manner where we can respond to it. So if there's an incident, please call. Downtown events, again, I'll echo Chantal. They were very uneventful, and from our understanding, they were fairly well attended. The couple of reminders, bike safety. We're seeing an awful lot of bicycle accidents this weekend. I think the fire department might pipe into this, but we had several, and these are not car bicycle accidents. These are just people hitting curbs, running or falling over off of bikes, whatever, running into some sand, and not wearing helmets, getting head injuries. It seems like just myself, I remember at least 3 or 4 incidents requiring the response of ambulances over the weekend. We started an uncovered loads campaign on Friday, July 1st. The first weekend, we issued 5 citations, $200 civil violations for uncovered loads on the high-speed roads. And just a final comment, we've been working on the traffic and pedestrian issues down on Lower Broad Street for the last couple of days. We're making some changes down there. Some of it is, we're trying it, see if it works. One of the things is the juice bar is going to be not closing off the South Beach or the South Beach Extension Road anymore, but we are going to encroach into the parking area there next to the juice bar to give the crowd a place to stand. We're asking patrons of the juice bar to please leave a lane of traffic open on South Beach Road. It's needed for a lot of reasons. One is for the other businesses to access their facilities, their needs, and also for people to get to the ferry, and also for emergency vehicles. And also, we're also allowing double parking for purposes of picking up food along Lower Broad Street. So if somebody is double parked down there, as long as generally the vehicle should be occupied by at least one person, but a very short term, people will be allowed to stop and go in and get food and come back out and then leave. We're cutting back. That was being discouraged by the CSOs. We had a conversation today, and we're going to give it a try to see how that works. And that's it for 4th of July.
Thanks so much, Chief. I also just want to mention that early on, it was the chief's idea to get the food trucks down there, and they were very popular. So thanks for that idea.
Libby, I just wanted to thank everybody involved in what, it's DPW, Harbor Master, NPD, because it's been 3 or 4 years, maybe 5 years of really trying to kind of revamp and make July 4th safe, right? So, and more family friendly. And it was a big effort that first year, cutting off the alcohol and just making it less of a party, and everybody who lives in those areas, we're here every night trying to say, like, you got to do something. So it took years, but it's really, it worked, and it's still working. So I applaud everyone who worked on that.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. The fire department has, I'm going to give their report. They're not able to be here tonight. They are very short-staffed. They also gave a bit of a call for service summary and compared years from 2019 pre-COVID to now. There were a few more calls this year, including a number of calls during the storm. As you recall, we had a pretty heavy rainstorm on Saturday. And other than that, on the 4th itself, it looks like there were more calls than usual. They say that the water fight, which we actually are terming the water contest now, was less chaotic and more manageable with reduced staffing. It was a busy day. And we very much thank the group of firefighters who made that event a success. It seemed to overall be well received. There were a lot of fireworks complaints that came in Friday through Monday, and our fire prevention officer, Joe Townsend, had to be dispatched to try to locate where these things were, and they were in a variety of different places, and it's really hard to locate the source if people just say, I think it's somewhere around here. It's a lot better if there's a specific location that he can get to much more quickly. So anyway, that's the fire department report. Thank you very much for their work. I think we have some information from the Park and Rec manager, Charlie Palaki, and our deputy DPW director for facilities, Paul Berard. Charlie, do you want to start? Just a brief summary. He seems to be muted. No, he's not. He's not. Can we hear him?
His microphone's not working.
Charlie, stand by. We're trying to get the audio figured out.
Jason, it's Melissa. Can I make a quick comment about the fire department report?
Sure. Yeah. Of course.
Thank you. And Libby, I think your point's really well taken, that it's really hard to identify where, personal fireworks are going off. But I think it's also really hard as a community member. I know I was sick this past week, and I was kept up from about 1 a.m. till 2:30 a.m. with someone's fireworks going off, and it sounded, I didn't end up calling the fire department because I couldn't be specific about where it was, except that it was close to me and, maybe in the Maya Comet area. So more specificity would be great, but I think by the time those of us are in bed and some of these things are going off, it's impossible to tell. So I wanted to add that note.
Thanks, Melissa. Is Charlie's mic working?
I don't know.
No.
He
appears
doesn't
to be talking.
Yeah, it's not coming through.
Could he maybe just, Charlie, could you log off and come? Oh, wait, can you come back in?
I'm texting.
Does that work?
How about Paul Berard? Can he
That usually fixes
take
it.
over?
Hello.
There we go.
I don't have Charlie's notes in front of me. I was going to speak more about the public facilities that were used during 4th of July. In my experience, this is the first 4th of July that we had 0 calls about any restrooms across the island having issues. So that was really good. Definitely a testament to the cleaners and the supporting staff in those areas.
Thanks, Paul.
Yeah.
How are we doing with Charlie?
He's reconnecting.
Okay.
While we're waiting, I'd be interested to know the calls for the fire department doubled, and what was do they feel is there a trend? Was it just kind of a one-off?
I think it was a one-off.
Okay. Was it mostly alcohol related? Those extra 40 or 50? We don't have to answer it now. I'm just curious. Like, what?
Yeah, I don't know if Chief Pittman maybe knows the answer to that.
I don't know the specific answer, but I do know that that's not just a weekend phenomena. We've noticed the fire department has been running an awful lot of calls the last week or so. The dispatchers were just commenting about that to me the other day. And again, it's a lot of little things like people falling off bikes, people falling into swimming pools. Many of them don't result in transport, but they still require a response and assessment by the fire department.
Thank you.
Don't forget that crazy storm we had on Saturday, July 2nd.
Yeah, that was 14 of them. Yeah.
It was fairly remarkable.
We would have had way more calls for service for the police department had we not had that storm, but the fire department picked up the slack for us.
Yeah.
Charlie's having technical difficulties.
Okay, well, moving on from that, I'll attempt to speak a little bit for Charlie. The DPW did have also limited staffing, and they did their best with the help of several other departments to get the metal fencing up for the water contest and all the setup for the other activities that were going on at Children's Beach and elsewhere. So thank you very much to them. They also did huge trash pickup all over the place. They did a really good job keeping up, and it's a real big job to keep up with all this trash that people put out there. So thank you to them. Lastly, I think our Chamber of Commerce Director, Peter Burke. Peter's been part of our summer issues team. And we had a bit of a post-4th wrap-up meeting yesterday, and we asked him to come on and speak from the chamber perspective about how it went.
Yes, so thank you very much for the invite. The 4th of July was a big success for our standpoint. We had a very small event, entrepreneur showcase at the Athenaeum Library lot. It was well attended in terms of it being a side event, not one of the marquee events. I'd also like to thank the town. I know Chantal's department did a great job at Children's Beach. Our staff ended up volunteering. I want to thank them as well for putting in a lot of effort in addition to the effort of the general community. I'd also like to invite anyone that had businesses that want to volunteer data, how their successes were measured on the 4th of July. It's really hard for us to measure that with any sort of unified system. So the old-fashioned email, let us know how you're, would love to see a gauge and use that to help guide the planning for the next 4th of July. Same thing with citizens. I know a lot of people experienced really great fun times that I saw the masses down on the water contest and Children's Beach. So if you think those could be different or had any ideas, I'd love to, the chamber's happy to field those requests and help send them along to the right departments. So thank you very much.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. If you can have businesses say, hey, we were up 10%, keep it anonymous.
Sure,
but then you guys can say, look, 14 businesses in retail were up 2% or.
Right. And I know everyone's gonna have different, there's no unified way to measure it, but there's a couple of big marquee, measuring sticks we can use, and any efforts we can use to measure and gauge would help us out. So appreciate any inputs.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Peter, and thank you for being part of our team. It's been really good to have you on. I also wanted to echo what the chair said earlier, to thank all the departments for their roles in this. Of course, we're all short-staffed, as many businesses are, and there's a lot that goes into getting these events underway behind the scenes. There was a lot of, let's say, behind the scenes discussions on Friday, late Friday, to get everything underway and going, which the public obviously would not see, but thank you all departments who stepped up and got things done.
We can I just say, I want to also thank everybody for coming up with a solution to keep the water contest, right, to keep it going, right? So we don't always have to just stop things because it grew too much and it was getting a safety issue. What a good solution. Everybody got wet, and I couldn't make it, but it just still seemed fun for kids, but without the balloons going into the harbor and, people being, sprayed in at 1-2, and just thought it was so whoever came up with that plan, kudos to them.
It was a team effort, but I don't even want to name anybody because they'll say that was my idea. but it really was. We really thank everybody for coming together on that. My next item is the 2023. I think that was all the departments. Was there anybody else? I don't want to miss anybody. I think that was
the
it.
harbor master or do they?
No, we didn't. They would have been covered under police. They were probably pretty busy out there, but they didn't have events rather than the fireworks. But again, thank you very much to them. They were definitely out on the water during the fireworks. Okay, so moving on to the next item, 2023 annual town meeting and annual town election date options. There are some dates in your packet. The recommended date is Saturday, I think it's May 6th. Saturday, May 6th, with the election 2 weeks later on May 23rd. There are a couple of other options there, Monday, May 1st, with the election on Tuesday, May 16th, and Monday, May 8th, with the election on Tuesday, the 23rd. The Saturday is preferred because it is less impact on the school to get set up for town meeting. That can happen later on Friday. And again, it just doesn't impact them as much. There's also an email in your packet from the town clerk about Saturday. We avoid, probably because we'd finish on Saturday, the significant fee to keep the electronic voting another night. Happy to answer any questions.
Yeah. Go on.
I'm fine with the Saturday.
I agree.
You know, there's pros and cons of both.
Yeah, I like switching back and forth because it's not good. Saturdays aren't great for everyone. During the week isn't great for everyone. So switching helps. And I still think having the food trucks there for our break at lunch would be a great idea. Just still throwing that out there. I mean, the school would have to approve it and allow it's on their property, but I like that idea. A couple of years ago, we did a break where everybody went to the cafeteria and had something to eat, and so I'm going to keep pushing for the food truck idea.
Well, and if it's a Saturday too, it's.
Yeah, if they're up and running by then, early May. It's a great idea.
Jason, it's Melissa.
Yep.
I do think it's probably the lesser of all evils, but as town meetings on a Saturday in May, I just feel like, and I do agree with you, alternating is our best course of action until there's a better solution, if there is one. But it's really disenfranchising for people to take an entire day off of work in the spring. And I think we're a heavy service and trades community, and not everyone can do their work Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. And so I have concerns about who is being left out when we don't do it in the evening. That's my comment. Thank you.
Anything else? Questions, comments? Thank you, Melissa. On to Baxter Road.
Is there a
Oh,
vote?
I'm sorry.
Do you need a vote on that?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it just said review.
Motion to approve May 6th.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor by roll call. Don?
Aye.
Brooke?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
Melissa?
No.
Jason, yes. It's approved 4-1. Sorry,
Okay.
I was reading the.
Yeah, you're
literally.
right. You're right. I probably should have been a little clearer on that. If you think that you want to put it off, that's fine too. But, okay, we're good.
I think it's fine.
You have now voted, so.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. Thank you. Okay, next, Baxter Road Utility Relocation and Alternative Access Project Update. Arcadis, the same firm engaged by the town to conduct a Baxter Road engineering feasibility study in 2021, was re-engaged earlier this year for phase 1 of a Baxter Road utility relocation and alternative access design project. Bill Casey of Arcadis is online here, and Kate Edwards, and I think some others from Arcadis to answer questions. And Bill's going to take us through a presentation of work completed to date and remaining work to be done on this project.
Great. Thank you, Libby.
Is Bill going to screen share, or do I need to?
I think I can. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, terrific. Let me see if I get screen share. Screen 2. Yeah.
While that's coming up, I also want to mention that Ken Bogrand and Vince Murphy and myself have also been very involved in this. And Vince has really been our staff lead. And so Vince and Ken too, thank you guys very much. It's been taking quite a bit of time.
Very good. This is a project update. We plan to have one of these a quarter, as we go through the process. But as Libby indicated, this is to provide alternative access and relocation of utilities for the Baxter Road residents should erosion continue along the bluff, putting existing Baxter Road in jeopardy. And just as we're looking here, we've got Baxter Road, got the bluff, Sankaty Road, Lighthouse, and the golf club, just to frame ourselves. This is a brief agenda of what we're just going to quickly go through tonight. This is our project team. Myself, Vince, and Kate will be doing each a little bit of piece of the presentation, but certainly everybody has been involved quite frequently. Okay. Vince, if you're out there, would you like to take this slide?
Yes, thank you, Bill. Can the board hear me all right? Great. So I just wanted to give an idea of the big picture of what's happened with resilience on Nantucket over the last few decades, long before I was even here. So some of the earliest things that happened was somewhat of a private resilience project, was to move the lighthouse at Sankaty. That happened in 2007. That was a wonderful resilience project with a wonderful outcome and historic preservation elements to it. We also had other localized projects around the island. One of my favorites is the beach grass planting that happened on Ames Avenue. Sheep Pond Road, Ames Avenue Bridge, that was a beach stabilization project. Sheep Pond Road had a relocation project and is now currently going through its second relocation project. We've also had numerous other projects all around the North Shore, everywhere from Eel Point through to jetties. And then once you come onto the inner harbour, there are several places around Pocomo that have all kinds of resilience projects, all private ones for the most part, but resilience projects nonetheless, just to give you an idea. Back in 2013, December 2013, January 2014, that's when the initial geotubes were installed, a resilience project in their own right as part of a public-private partnership between the board and SPPF to get this project in place. So then there's in 2020, there was an annual town meeting where there was costs were appropriated for Baxter Road and works to undertake work there. That then led to 2021, where the the Baxter Road long-term planning effort was undertaken, and this had all kinds of alternatives analysis, adaptation planning for the area, and the findings were pretty interesting. Existing system must be brought into compliance and monitoring them and maintained for the life of the system. Existing system provides greatest level of protection and effectiveness. Retreat planning must begin now, and it's a long-term retreat planning is expected now and is very necessary. This was also done at the same time, and this was actually completed pretty much the same month as the Coastal Resilience Plan, an all-island, county-wide coastal resilience plan that also took Tuckernuck, Muskeget into account as well. It was county-wide. Now we step forward and we're looking at some of the outcomes of the 2021 Baxter Road long-term planning focus. There's two boxes on screen on the top right. This is two parallel projects that are working hand in hand, but on very separate and very independent tracks. There's the notice of intent that we worked through to develop the MOU for, so that we can proceed with the some other tow stabilization for the base, but also separately and independently. There is the Baxter Road utility relocation and alternative access designs. That is what we're primarily here to talk about tonight. But we also have to remember there's going to be many other future projects that are going to come through this board. We also have to take erosion into account in every one of them. Next slide, please, Bill, so I can talk about erosion. So here, the red line represents the 945 feet of the existing geotube system. There's three hatched areas This is something that Nantucket got very lucky with, particularly for the Coastal Resilience Plan and particularly for the Baxter Road planning from last year. Nantucket was the first county where FEMA had undertaken erosion hazard mapping. And we got this just in time for the CRP. It was terrific. It was one of the most informative things we could have possibly have had. So the green area closest back the wards Baxter Road and that whole hatched area that the green area covers, that is the area that might be eroded out by 2030. The pinky purpley color in the center is the area that could be lost by 2050. And the yellow area is the area that could be lost by 2100. And note how many houses in blue are in those areas. So this is the next phase of how we plan to give as many people access for as long as possible so that we can continue to provide services to the people in this area. Thanks, Bill.
Great, thank you, Vince. So I just wanted to touch real quick on the what our current scope of work is. Certainly at this phase where we're interacting with homeowners and abutters, and we're also doing some preliminary investigations. We're finding out who has water, who has sewer. We'll be moving forward through field survey, topographic survey, endangered species and wetland identification. We'll be entering into a documentation phase where we're putting down really the recommended plan, really the roadmap, if you will, for what will eventually become a shovel-ready final design construction contract documents, should they ever be needed if erosion proceeds and makes existing Baxter Road unsafe. So it's a little where we are, and this is a little bit of where we were. As Vince indicated, we were at the end of 2021. This map has been around, and just wanted to explain it a little bit. This map was really generated for construction budgetary purposes. It gave us a linear footage and a general idea of what a particular access way would be. We know that there is a existing memorandum of understanding to the north, and we need access to these folks along the southern portion here. This layout is no longer applicable. We're progressing our design and our preliminary mapping based on discussions and looking at all of the more technical aspects of who has water, who has sewer, who needs access. And we're going to provide this updated mapping in just a moment. It's kind of our preliminary step, which is kind of an intro step needed to get to our final design construction documents. So here is the project area, if you will. Certainly the ocean is to the east. The lighthouse is up here to the north. The golf club, Sankaty Road, Baxter Road, and Bayberry. And so what you see here is, granted, it's all highlighted lines. We're really providing access as well as utility routes, particularly for water and sewer. You can see we've got the existing memorandum of understanding, hitting these folks to the north. We've got a central location, or bringing all access down to Sankaty, which is again away from the erosion. I just wanted to point out as well here, we've identified the 2030 erosion line, the 2050 erosion line, and the 2100. Certainly the goal of this project is to become landward of the 2050 line. We've got a slight difference, and we've got a little southern portion here, and that's providing access to these residents. This section of line is really to reconnect utilities back into Baxter Road, where the erosion predictions are not as severe, and certainly to the landward side of 2050. You can see there are two alternatives here, and particularly these are the areas around 106 and 104. And really the small difference here is whether or not the travelway and utility access goes to the north or towards the south. And this presentation and mapping was presented to the homeowners at the beginning of June, and we will continue to communicate with the homeowners to find what the best solution is for all. We currently indicated that we had a meeting in the beginning of June. We plan to have another meeting towards either later this month or early in August. Other items that are going to occur this summer, fall is, wetland identification, endangered species identification. We're going to do topographic survey this fall. Ideally, we'd love to gain access to the homes themselves to really identify water and sewer locations where they exit the building, and really what the best route would be to relocate that connection. Really getting to an agreed upon finalized layout. And at the end, there'll be utility easements. Should this project move to the next step of construction, homeowners could expect construction equipment, clearing of these access ways, trench work, installation of sewage grinders, electrical changes or addition of power to those grinders, rerouting of water and sewer utilities, restoration of surfaces. Post-construction, private access ways, and the homeowners maintain their sewage grinders. We did, I think I maybe skipped over a little bit, but we did perform a bit of an analysis to determine, what the appropriate sewage methods would be. We looked at gravity sewers, we looked at pump stations, and we looked at low pressure sanitary sewers. Certainly the area itself and the length of sewers being almost a mile down to get back down to Bayberry gave us the indication that the sewers would be very deep, very expensive. And to get that distance by gravity did not appear very feasible. Another option of putting in several pump stations along the way. There's a real hill along Sankaty. It also was a costly method. Individual grinders were currently the plan, and they allowed to pump that significant distance under a low pressure situation. And they also are favorable among other coastal communities. I believe we had another recent project on island. Just a little bit about kind of next steps. This is a revised project schedule. Certainly we spent the beginning months of the project communicating and evolving, identifying who had water and sewer, what the best access routes would be, getting an understanding of the land. We're going to enter a phase of really field work with wetland and endangered species identification, documentation in the basis of design memorandum, and then start that permitting process to, once we've got a really good layout, to make sure that we progress, as permitting, as we all know, can take a little bit of time. This is where our coming work items are. I think I've stated those a little bit, and that is the update for now. Does anyone have any questions? Thank you.
Yeah. Now I have a quick question. How would you characterize the 6-2 meeting? Were people receptive? Was it positive?
I felt like it was a good meeting. I think we are still waiting to hear back from some of the homeowners themselves. We received some input on the phone.
If I may comment, Mr. Chair, the meeting went really well, better than we expected. There was a very real interest in the project. They were really pleased that we're talking to them about what we were thinking about doing. I think one thing that's really important to understand is that that we are not creating another Baxter Road to replace the section that's gone. So the title of this presentation is very important to understand. It's alternate access. What we're talking about is creating the opportunity for these people to have access off of Sankaty Road to be able to get in and out of their homes. What we're talking about in concept is a structure where they grant an easement to the town, or if we take it, there's an easement going back, but it's going to be an easement for them and their immediate neighbors to be able to use that to get access to these homes in this area, as opposed to being a general route with respect to everybody having access to it. So that's an important consideration to understand what we're doing. And I think it's one of the reasons why the conversations that we're having with the owners has been really very effective, because we're asking for their input, and we're listening to it, and we're trying to do as much as we can to be able to understand their concerns and needs, because this community is really interested. They want to preserve the geotubes, they want to preserve the bluff, but they also know that there has to be a way to deal with what happens if the worst thing happens in that we lose a portion of the bluff. So I think Vince will say the same thing. I mean, the most recent conversation we had a family, we thought we were going to go there for about half an hour, and we were there for almost 2 hours talking about all of the issues and the concerns that they have in terms of wanting to make sure that we preserve this beautiful part of the island for the town.
Yeah, that's good to hear, because there was some misconceptions on the northern end, and once we spent time talking to them, sort of the concerns were allayed as well. So I'm glad to hear that it's going positively.
So did I hear correctly that this access is designed with the 2050 line in mind, not the 2030 line?
That's correct.
Right. Okay. So just interested to know why not the next level? What is it, 2100? What was the next one? It might not be feasible, but in 20, 30 years, we'll be back again.
That's a distinct possibility, but the next available line and the next available statistic we have is 2100, and that shows that there were no structures remaining,
right,
or roads.
So it's all gone by that point.
So the best option that we have and the best information we have available to us is to plan for 2050.
Yep, makes sense.
2100 is part of Popus Road if it goes the way they think.
Right.
Jason, it's Melissa. May I ask a question?
Yep.
Thanks very much. This may be for Vince or anyone at Arcadis, but what are the conversations about triggers that would make us need to take action sooner? Are we having conversations around what some of those identified? I can only think of the word trigger, sorry, would be that would say maybe we need to take action before 2050?
And so I'd let you.
Yes, thank you. So it's an ongoing conversation, and when we've been talking to homeowners, we've been characterizing it in two very simple ways. The standards that we have been discussing at Select Board for a number of years now, the 25 feet from the road edge that suddenly becomes unsafe, that's the eastern road edge of Baxter Road itself, or the total failure of Baxter Road. It has happened that there have been 30-foot erosion events in that area in the past, so it's not beyond the bounds of possibility that you could lose the road. Some of the thinner areas at the moment are in the 38-foot range, but they are also some of the areas that are protected by the geotubes.
Thank you very much.
Any other comments or thoughts from the board? Is there any hands up there? I thought there'd be some public. Okay. Well, it's thank you for the presentation. And it's good that we have this update, not just for the public, but for us too. Because there's a lot going on there. So thank you, Vincent.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, just so FYI, we do have very regular meetings on this project, and so we'll probably plan another update as we have more significant information to report, maybe early in the fall or mid-fall, something like that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, on to select board reports and comments. As I said, we'll switch it up. We'll start with continued discussion on short-term rental work group framework. It's a mouthful.
So you do have something in your packet, I believe, from the FinCom chair.
Mhm.
And since your last discussion, she was not able to be here tonight, but since your last discussion, the expectation is as follows. The select board reviews the framework as it has now been commented on by the finance committee. You would theoretically add your comments today. The planning board reviews and adds their comments by, or maybe on July 11th. That pre-group that has 2 members each of the select board, the FinCom, and the planning board would meet before the end of the month to reconcile and finalize the draft framework. And then the appointment process would follow the town's regular process and with advertising and all of that. And most likely the work group would start in September.
Thank you, Libby.
Yeah, so that's the framework as most recently reviewed by the finance committee.
Matt?
Yeah, I was waiting. I haven't really, we haven't really decided in my mind, and I was waiting on input, written input from FinCom and Planning Board. So I'm not ready to sign off on anything until I see what the tenor, what the goals of those groups are. So I think it's premature for us to sign off on it. I'm concerned about a fair makeup of the group. I'm concerned about the public challenge the makeup if we're not 100% above board ethically. I'm concerned about short-term rental oversight if a member of Plus will provide the support, but it's coming out of planning, which demonstrated they believe 100% of the island should be allowable use. I think that's something we're trying to determine. So I'm not sure. I'd like to understand the facilitator or how that's going to happen. So I think, I just think we have to be, I was confident, sort of as it was original, but as it's shifting, I'm feeling less confident about that we're going to get where we want. We're going to get where we need to go. So I just want everyone to know those concerns.
Go ahead, Brooke.
Yeah, so I would say that what we're being asked to do tonight is to provide feedback on this, very specific feedback, and then it goes back to the group of 6 to reconcile the 3 boards' comments. We're not being asked to approve anything tonight. So for instance, just as a point of clarification, the use of the phrase ex officio is an incorrect legal use of the term. And so what we're talking about is a Board of Health member as a non-voting member. And I think we determined that the NARAB position really can't even be deliberative according to what we were advised on town council. And that when we talked last time, we talked about using NARAB as a resource for data and information and inviting them to participate as an expert in the conversation of the work group rather than having a seat voting or non-voting because they can't deliberate. And so those would be the sort of particular comments I have. And then we haven't really talked much about, we talked a lot about process and we talked about an application that would help the appointing authority, which I believe is now this board plus a representative from planning and a representative from FinCom, if I remember correctly, doing all the final appointments, and that all positions would be recommended by the groups that have a seat, the named groups that have a seat, with final approval by the approving authority. And I think the idea here in my mind is that everybody fills out the same questionnaire so that we understand every nominated person and every at-large person who applies what their personal or professional relationship to short-term rentals is in order to try to get the best distribution of voices at the table to represent all of the groups who have an interest in this discussion one way or another, and so that it can be balanced. And if so it's both a combination of who folks represent in terms of their appointing board, their recommending board, as well as how as individuals they relate to the short-term rental business. So we can balance out the voices. And I think that speaks to your question.
But here's the question: what happens if what is presented isn't balanced? What if what is presented is unbalanced one way or the other? Are we going to be able to stop that? Are we going to be able, what's the mechanism to contest that?
I think it's the 3 at-large seats. That's why we discussed adding more at-large seats in order to, those then could be open to anybody. And then as we look at those applications and we see that the groups that have a seat who are recommending someone, if the individuals they recommend have a certain relationship to short-term rentals that are that skew the balance in one direction or another, then the 3 at-large seats are the opportunity for the appointing authority to balance it the other way. So does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the governor on it.
And what I'm saying is I'm not confident necessarily that will work. And the reason I'm not is that we are an elected board with 5 individuals and we all represent different constituencies. And if the people we represent are, feel strongly one way or another on this, and we may be voting, we may end up with appointing authority that is, itself is just skewing it. In an ideal world, I agree. I was more confident prior, but I'm less confident now.
So do you have any specific recommendations on how to change this? I guess would be, that's what the 6 of us want to know. What would you do differently and why? Then that would help us go back and reconcile the way it's laid out.
At this point, I'm not sure what I would do differently. One thing I'd like to know is is John Giorgio available still tonight?
Yes.
Yeah, because this is a John question. One of the questions a couple weeks ago when we talked about it was the 10% factor he was using. It was 10%. Typically, it's 10% on residents, as I understand it, and we were using 10% of dwellings, and so he was going to look into that and come back to that. Did we answer that, John?
Good evening, everyone. So Matt, what I had said at the last meeting was it was very difficult to figure this out on a population basis, whereas the records of the town look at dwelling units. And so my recommendation was that you base it upon the dwelling units, and the State Ethics Commission confirmed that when I got the email back saying they agreed with my opinion for the most part. So I was not asked to go back. I'd have no basis to figure this out on a population basis. I will say that one of the interesting statistics was in terms of being in a abutter, 51% of all properties, all residential units on Nantucket abut a short-term rental. So it almost becomes a red herring in my mind to try to equate that to population, given the fact that 51% of all dwellings abut a short-term rental. And I don't think there's any way that you would find that the actual population living in that 51% would fall below the 10% guidance that the State Ethics Commission uses. I think we went through great lengths to try to provide guidance to the three boards. We had that guidance confirmed by the Ethics Commission. And, as I said, I think we pretty much got the green light to proceed with the appointment process based on the guidelines that were contained in my detailed opinion.
Right. And I guess my point is I didn't give the green light at that point. I was waiting for further answers. But I understand I'm probably in the minority on it, but I want to make sure that my concerns are noted. The 10% for residents is for, Nantucket residents. There's a lot of people who are not Nantucket residents, and so that's who I'm concerned about. And I think, I think that's and I think that is one of the potential challenges if we don't pick a group that's perceived from all sides as being representative, and I can go along with it and then save my complaining for later. If we pick a representative group, I think we'll get somewhere. But if it's jockeying and if it's not representative, if we can't look at it and the public doesn't, one segment of the public, one way or the other, doesn't feel like it's truly a cross section, then we are it's a waste of time. We'll be spinning our wheels. So that's really my concern.
I don't think you're in the minority, Matt. I think we all want to, it's going to be really hard to make it perfectly balanced, but I don't see another way to make it perfectly balanced. But it is in our control. We have, if the three entities and the select board have the control, it's on us to make sure it's as balanced as possible. And, regardless of what, the 6 different sides of this issue you're on, right? You're not going to you want everybody to be on your side. So everybody has to, I think we can make it really balanced. It's going to depend on who comes in on applications. But the application process needs to be the same for everyone. If we feel that someone's isn't as transparent, and we don't have to put them in, or if there's any questions, but really it's going to be up to us. So I agree with you. I just think I don't see, at least right now, another way to scrap that whole kind of the structure of who we're going to appoint, 3 at large, and another way as of right now. But the other thing is the appointing authority. I don't think we 100% figured out of who appoints, if it's 2, 2, and 2, because I think it was supposed to be equal. But then where does the select board come in? So you say we're signing off. I don't think we have the authority to break it all up. I'm just saying, to use an extreme example, we don't want this to go forward at all. It's still going to go forward. We could delay it because one board, the planning board, could say we want this, and select board could say this, and this group that you and I are on, Brooke, we're going to have to, balance it out within the groups.
Can I just ask
Sure.
a question? I mean, the way I'm looking at how this is structured, it's really only 3 members are getting appointed because the other ones are getting appointed by their entity.
But we still, go ahead, Brooke.
You still have to approve.
Yeah.
Okay.
Everybody has to be affirmed by the appointing authority.
Okay.
They're nominated by the entity that they're chosen, that chooses them. And one of the other things that I thought is, originally it was that the group, say the advisory committee of non-voting taxpayers, would identify a named primary and named alternate. I kind of feel like maybe they should nominate 2 people, and the appointing authority then, in an effort to balance, decides who's the primary and who's the alternate among the 2. Or we could change. I mean, this is subject to change. They could nominate 3 people, and the appointing authority chooses a primary and an alternate among those 3 people. We can, so that opens the pool.
That to me would be that's a way to try to balance this, because there's a lot of jockeying, and I could see this it has to be represented, people who are well represented, well respected in the community. It has to be people who have the ability to, sort of get along with others and come to an agreement, and we have some idea of who that is and who that isn't, from previous examples of it. And so I think that we have to be, and I think having 3 choices from each one and then picking from that, I think we'd have a better chance. So that to me, that would be fine. That would be an
So
improvement.
why don't we make that as a suggestion, like one of the things that's coming from the select board?
Yeah, I like that too, because I feel, I feel like the setup with such, there's 2 particular entities on here that are very polarized. And I'm worried about actually getting those 2 together. Like, I almost feel like in some way they should be advisory to the process because they are at such completely opposite ends. And I don't know that they're going to get to a place where they can agree on all the facts.
So, Jason, may I?
Yeah, please.
So when we had this meeting, when we started with this framework, I was actually opposed to having organizations appoint people, and thinking for the same reason, like we make assumptions about where they stand and that who they're going to appoint, right? However, it's really important. I was persuaded by the other members of the group that the people who've been the most highly engaged in this, it's really important to have them at the table and working from within the process rather than making them work from without the process. And so I was weighing the risk reward ratio of that. And the other really important persuasive thing that people said to me is those groups have pretty large networks with whom they communicate, and that's advantageous, particularly on the public engagement part of this process, to have reach into their mailing lists and their members. And so that's what persuaded me. So
yeah, no, fair enough. But I do like the idea of having 3 people nominated.
Yeah. And then as far as who the nominating authority was going to, or the appointing authority, I think we said it had to be an odd number. So 2, 2, and 2 wasn't going to work. So then we went 3, 3, and 3, 3, and 3, I think is what we talked about at our last meeting at one point. Right?
Yeah, we
Don,
did.
Is that what?
Yeah.
Did we?
Which I think makes sense.
Just get an odd number.
Yeah.
So it'd be 3 select board, 3.
Planning, 3 FinCom.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that in there, I think I think we've got that's part of where I think we have a problem. Both the planning board and the FinCom were very pro article, was it 42? They were very pro, allowing this everywhere on the island. So that gets 6, and so that's my concern. If they're getting 6 votes out of 9, there you go. That's the first problem.
I don't think it's fair to say that they were pro having this be anywhere on the island, unregulated. I think that they were pro, let's write it into the zoning code so that it's defined and then go further from there. So I have a difference of opinion on their support for Article 42. I just don't think that that's fair to say that they're, in like the.
But Don, we had the motion on the table from the planning board was for us to deal with this, and you made the motion to make it, to water it down the way it is, and so that, I wouldn't expect you to be otherwise, and I understand. I think you want the right thing, but I worry that we're putting something in place that won't get us the right thing. So.
I don't think my motion watered it down because I was putting it in only 3 board members' hands because 2 of us had to recuse, and that's why I made it as a private citizen. But it was to get a broader section of people involved to talk about it.
And I would say, Matt, I don't know, my sense of the 6 of us is that there's a curiosity about what is the right thing and what does the community want from everybody who sits in that group. And I think when Article 42 was crafted, it was crafted like, you're either up or down on this, right? What we're doing in lieu of that is having a more robust and thorough conversation about the nuances and complexities of the conversation that aren't about, is this the right answer? Or is that the right answer? Yeah. So maybe more optimistic overall. And I will tell you that conversations I'm having with people in the community and with people from the planning board and that there's more nuance to people's perspective on this that might be. A lot of people make assumptions about me as a housing advocate and what I think about short-term rentals. They make statements that I'm opposed to them outright, and that isn't true either. So I think we have to, and I think knowing too how people personally relate to because there's also, honestly, there's board interest, institutional interest, and personal interests that we're trying to build, a balanced board and where there's so many complex perspectives. But I hear what you're saying, and I'm hoping that.
I'm hoping too. I see where it's going, and I'm hoping that that it is balanced and it is fair. And I'm just saying, I'm seeing some concerns, and I've been at this political thing a long time now. I'm the old guy, and so I have some concerns, and I'm just voicing those. I've also spoken to both sides of this debate for 2 years. I've spoken, and I know that there is more agreement that's possible, but the agreement is going to, I think the agreement that's possible between those two groups is probably not agreement will make, a 10 or 15% segment of the island very happy. So it's going to be interesting. And I hope that we can, get through that, but that's the, anyway.
Brooke, do you have?
No, I was going to say that's why we're not leaving it to the two groups to sit down at the table and figure it out. That we're trying to include more voices to the best of our ability. So
I just want to check on Melissa if I don't have a computer.
Thanks, Jason. I've been listening carefully, and I also hear Matt's concerns about who the appointing authority will ultimately be. And I think it's really important to not get caught up in the narrative that there are already defined sides on this issue. I think that Brooke's correct. There's different perspectives. And the past 2 years, there have just been a bunch of really good people trying to figure out what the right answer is. And we've now got a path. I hate to say it, but I think we can't let perfect be the enemy of the good. I think we need to get this group started and let the conversation start to happen and get something in front of town meeting because that's what the voters want. So I think this is really well thought out. It's the best we can do with what we've got. And I think that we need to start letting these folks get together and have the conversation and let the debate start. That's my opinion tonight. Thanks.
Thank you, Melissa. I think I'm optimistic too. I think there's a way for us to kind of get out of we're seeing it nationally, right? Where the biggest threat to everybody's world is internal, right? It's a Democrat, a Republican, or their neighbor versus external threats, right? Coming together and thinking about, quality of life, housing. What do we want Nantucket to look like in the next 5 or 10 years? How do we preserve it? Everything that we love, coming together on that versus just the internal fighting. We can get caught up in that and we'll never go anywhere. I think this is a good shot, our best shot to. I know it's kind of probably Pollyannish, but I feel bullish that we can come together. But I like that you bring this, like the political part of it up, Matt. Like we need to talk about it, and this is a very complicated issue, and if we have to talk about it for an hour and a half every Wednesday night, then we should until it gets to a good point. So we're going to keep it on the agenda until. So I think we have tonight to make comments, and I think next Wednesday we could make other comments and get that to the STR.
Hopefully by next Wednesday you might have the planning board comments. I think that's the.
I think that to me that would be helpful. Yeah. So.
Yep. Because they're.
Sorry.
Brooke.
I'm just wanting to get down if you're changing anything here.
was just going to do that.
Okay.
So I think, so I think in section 1, we're removing NARAB, I.
Okay.
Board of Health, instead of designating it as ex officio, it's non-voting. Though, I don't know, I could go the other way and have someone from the Board of Health be a voting member, since they're going to be responsible for the regulatory framework. Maybe it makes sense for them to actually have what does that give us in terms of?
Take away from the at-large.
Yeah. Brooke, it's Melissa. I would just add that, the regulatory framework in terms of what we've already voted on, Article 39, is in development, and that's well within the Board of Health's purview right now. And I think what this group is really going to be focusing heavily on is zoning changes. I'm not entirely sure it's important at this juncture, and this may be at the difference of opinion of some of my Board of Health colleagues, but I'm not sure it's essential that they are voting on this right now, although I do think their participation and voice in the group is important. I'm not concerned about them having a voting seat at this juncture, because the regulatory framework's already in development and under their purview.
So maybe they just come off the list, and we invite them to keep the group informed as to the work they're doing on the regulatory framework instead.
So off total, strike them? Or?
Well, I mean, do they designate someone to attend the meetings?
I think that's important to have them have somebody attend the meetings. Personally, I'm not entirely sure that I believe that they need a voting seat on the regulations that this is going to bring to town meeting.
Well, then it could even be a staff member.
Right.
Yes, it could be.
Advisory is maybe the right word.
Yeah.
Brooke, were you saying instead of ex officio, they're non-voting?
Yeah, or advisory. Non-voting. I would say non-voting, to be clear.
As well.
Okay.
But I would say it can't be just a random different staff member. There's got to be some consistency,
Right.
just like you've asked of everyone else, that people have to be there
Yeah.
regularly.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're missing the thread.
So a Board of Health designee,
Non-voting designee.
but they can't designate like somebody who's not associated with the Board of Health.
Joe Smith down the road, right?
Right.
Right, staff or Board of Health member.
Okay.
And I think one of the points you make is like they can't deliberate. So-
Right,
But we can
can't
have people
deliberate
come
or
in
vote.
and,
Yeah.
right. Therefore, information, and that's where the facilitator will come in.
Yeah.
So there was that. What else did you have, Brooke?
So I was going to say, in section 2, does that feel like a good representation of the kind of interest that we want to see represented in the group? And is that will that inform what gets asked on the questionnaire? Is that the basis? That I see as section 2 as being sort of the basis for the applicant questionnaire.
Mhm.
And I don't know who's going to craft that, but
Denise is.
okay.
And with John Georgia looking at it to make sure it's,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
that it's- we're not-
It'll just be drafted and then it'll be sent around. for
Okay.
review.
Okay. And then section 3 is where we made some changes, which is all members will be confirmed by a majority vote of a group made up of 3 select board members, 3 planning board members, and 3 FinCom members.
Okay, hold on a minute.
Section 3A,
So 3A is now,
3, 3, and 3.
So 9 people.
3 select
That's a
board, 3
broader-
FinCom, 3 planning.
And then
That's the one I'm
B was 3 members,
concerned about.
right?
Okay,
As
so
well.
you're saying we're yielding our authority too much?
because there it's 3-1-1.
Yeah, I could go either way. I don't,
Well, I think that's the one I have concern about. I think and until we hear back, again, I think we should withhold making some of these changes till we hear what other people have to say about what they think about it. I think that's part of what's happening.
So maybe just note that we're debating that.
Yeah.
Okay, so don't actually change anything just yet, but debating on the 3, 3, and 3.
Yeah. And then B would read, each group will be asked to propose 3 individuals from whom the appointing board will select a primary and an alternate.
And that I think is an improvement. That's a good thing.
And the questionnaire should include, would you prefer to be the primary or alternate? Because some people might have more time than others.
So let me just make sure I understand. Each group will be asked to propose 3
Nominees, say,
nominees.
from each group of 3, a primary and an alternate will be appointed.
So I jotted it down before, propose 3 nominees from whom, what?
Of which a primary and alternate will be appointed. A group of 3 nominees from which, sorry, I'm writing out loud.
From which.
A
Sorry.
primary and alternate will be appointed.
Got it. Makes sense.
I know.
Brooke, who was calling you on your phone?
It
there?
was dispatch.
I've never seen that phone ring before.
Apparently I needed to respond.
So just to reiterate one more time, sorry. B1, each group will be asked to propose 3 nominees from which a primary and alternate will be appointed.
Yes.
Okay. By the appointers. By the appointers.
By the appointing, whatever we decide in.
Not by the group that puts them forward.
Right, by the appointing authority.
Yeah. Can I ask you a question about number 4?
Mm-hmm.
The non-voting chair would be an independent consultant is this the facilitator?
Yeah. We can call it something different.
I think it should just be the facilitator, Libby.
Yeah.
That was going to be my comment also. I think they're not the chair. They're a facilitator.
Okay, so there will, maybe that just needs to be reworded a bit. There will be a facilitator or something like that.
Yep. Is everybody fine with number 5? About the attendance? So it gives us a chance, like if someone just doesn't show up for 3, 4 meetings, then the alternate could come in, or it gives us a little bit of room to maneuver.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and I guess when you think about attendance, if you're appointed as the alternate, the expectation should be, it's like I don't know, what's the?
Understudy.
Understudy. You will have been expected to attend or watch recordings of all the meetings, so you're up to speed in the event that you have to step in. So just setting that expectation.
Mm-hmm.
Under 8B, 100% agreement to the facts. How are they defined in the necessary analysis for decision-making? Who is going to be providing the facts, and how is that going to be, how are we going to know? You seem like who's providing it, and how do we know? Like is the group coming with their own facts? Are different segments bringing facts? Who's doing that?
I would think the facilitator would have to make that decision, but I think some of it would be coming from Granicus.
Well, I'm not sure. Granicus would only be providing information if they're asked for it. But I think the facts it's just what it says here. The group is going to agree on the facts. So at some point, I'm making this up right now, somebody would say, okay, there are 2,000 short-term rental units. Does everybody agree that that is a fact? And where did that information come from? And so it's going to be a process like that, I think. Brooke, is that your understanding?
Well, so in section 5B, reaching 100% consensus on the data needed, data definitions, and sources of all data from which.
Yeah.
I think the use of the word facts is a little contentious in our culture right now, so maybe just replace that with data.
I think that's why it was written that way. Like, we have to
Contributing
agree on the
data
data.
points,
Because if we
yeah.
can't do that, you said earlier, Matt, we can't
Yeah.
agree on the data, we can't.
Well,
agree
but
any
here's the
further.
other thing and this is that, and that's why I went to 8 instead of 5.
Yeah.
But sort of, we've talked about a facilitator, but there needs, my sense is there needs to be someone with subject knowledge somewhere involved that can say, here's all the different things that people have done, and looking at it, here are 2 or 3 things that I think you should consider. Who's going to be that person? And if it's not Granicus, who is it?
Yeah, I would think Granicus would be involved, as well as, potential sources from other communities that are similar, that have done some sort of regulations. I think that you will be able to get some actual data from someone from NAREB, because there are like hard figures of how many days something was rented. In addition to, like, say there's 2,000 registered rentals, some of them might only be rented 2 weeks out of the year total. Those kind of points, and then probably public safety with what kind of complaints that they've had and where, and I don't know.
I think that it sounded to me like from your discussion last time is that the group will determine what data do we need and where are we going to get it from. So somebody might say, oh, we should get it from NAREB, and somebody else might say, no, that's biased or whatever. And so then the group is going to have to work out, is it acceptable source?
But but here, and I think we should 100% get info from NAREB. But I think the issue becomes, if we're pushing a timeline and we're pushing we have to know what we want to know, and we have to do it by this date, but we don't have we could spend the whole time. I'm just sort of saying, there are people that do this, there are, that know this stuff and know it way better than, and who on our side if we have to do the research, who on our side is doing that? Who's making the calls? When do they make the calls? Who calls the different communities? I think it's a great idea, but, I think there's a lot of work here. And so, so anyway, that's just my concern, is you throw this huge topic to a bunch of individuals, and unless you have, unless you have someone, 1 or 2 people who are just dedicated and put tons of time into it and come up with all this for everybody, the group, we could flounder, or unless you hire somebody who has all that information, we could flounder. So that's my point.
I agree that independent data gathering is critical and data analysis is critical. I think we take a step farther back. Someone makes a statement about short-term rentals. Short-term rentals are X. I don't know, destroying the year-round community,
Or the
right?
best thing ever.
Right,
One or the other.
right. It's a statement. What I want to charge this group with is take the beliefs that you have, frame them as questions, and then ask yourself, what information do you need to answer said question, right? So you go from an assumption about the short-term rental world, and then say, how do we know, how can we prove the assumption? How do we prove the theory? What questions do we need to ask? What information do we need to back it up? So that then we're all working from the same information, the same analyzed data, and saying, we've seen this many houses, that have been enrolled this year. Well, what is what do we really need to know? New ones, old ones, so it's, you work backwards from the assumptions and then move forward. There's a process for this, and a good facilitator is going to be able to help this group work through what that process should be. And I don't want to be too directive, because I think if we have a well-represented group, then they will come up with a robust and thorough set of questions that need to be answered for us to come together and agree on a path forward. Now, we may disagree on the importance of the answer to one question versus another. That's going to be ultimately the
And
final
my
decision.
question is, who answers the question? The group comes up with a bunch of questions, and the facilitator, if the facilitator doesn't have subject knowledge, who answers the question? That's my question. And I'm not getting an answer to it, really.
I think it depends on what the question is.
Well, and what this framework says is the group has to agree that the information they have to answer that question, they agree on where it came from,
Right.
what it, that it's valid. And then they can debate the merits of how that information informs the direction we should go. Because that's ultimately where we need to end up, is if we know X is happening as a result of short-term rentals, benefit, it's bringing in this many tourists and they're spending this much money, and that's a really good thing. And then there's or perceived as a really good thing, and then something else is perceived as a potential long-term negative thing. Then we have an argument, we have a discussion about balancing the impacts. But the knowledge is based on statistics and information to the best of our ability. And I would say using outside consultants who can call data and tell us.
Right. And if that's what we're doing, is we're getting outside consultants to get the data, then my question is answered. And I'm just making sure that we're going, that's all I'm asking.
Jason, it's Melissa. I just feel like it's really important that we avoid going down the rabbit hole of determining what the data is now and where they're going to get that information. We need to get the group together and trust that this group is going to be made up of the representative community members with diverse perspectives on the impact of short-term rentals in our community. And they're going to get to agreement. And I think what this simply is saying is that until they are fully in agreement on the data set, then they can't move to the next step of proposing zoning changes or bylaw changes or regulatory changes. And, I don't know that you're going to get the answer to your question tonight, Matt, until we get the group together and start to have them lay out what those data sets are that they need and where they feel like they are going to need to seek to get the information. I do think you raise a really good point, though, and one area of concern that I'm having is there a staff liaison who is going to work with this group to help them facilitate the access to this information? Because we can't rely on a facilitator to do everything. And who's taking the minutes, who's setting up the Zoom calls, who's reporting all of this? I think there's a heavy administrative arm to this that really does need to be addressed before the group can get started.
The planning director and I have discussed that, and he will have a staff person to do those administrative things. As far as collecting data go, that's not really what that person is going to be doing, I don't think. There may be some things that the administrative person does that involves data, but it's going to be obtained by whoever the work group decides to obtain it from.
Yeah. But I think that administrative personnel will need to be the liaison to help access that.
Yeah, I think it's actually going to be sort of a team approach. Some of it will come through my office, some of it will come through planning, some of it might possibly come through the Board of Health. As far as communications with the facilitator go, that might be me. It might be probably the chair of this group with me and somebody else, just to facilitate, okay, the facilitator needs this or that. Do we have any money for it? That kind of thing. Do we need money for it?
And did I miss it? But when the group is fully appointed, will they then appoint a chair and a vice chair of the committee? Is that spelled out, or how is that going to work?
Would there be if it's facilitated? I would think the facilitator would run everything.
That's how I envision it, is that the facilitator is setting agendas and from as neutral an objective a perspective as possible.
Okay, but there, I'm only saying that in most committees, there's someone who's kind of a liaison with admin.
I think we have to be careful. Maybe we just have to define that, because
Yeah.
a chair can cut people off, can really push the meeting one way or the other.
Yeah, it doesn't
So
have to.
it can't be one of the 9.
Yeah, okay, let's ponder that.
Yeah.
It's a good question.
Yeah.
And my other question is, will there be financial resources? Because if there aren't, that's going to create a
Yeah, I had that
bottleneck, so.
question too.
Well, obviously, we don't have any money budgeted for this because it came up well after the budget was already approved. So we're going to probably have to use some joint resources between planning and town admin. And I don't know how much that's going to cost. I'm trying to pin down facilitators next week and get an idea of what that might cost. And then I'm not sure what other costs there might be.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, John.
In 5C, I recommend that you take out 80%, because 80% of 9 is 7.2, which means it's 8 votes, not 7. So I would just say reaching consensus, 7 votes out of 9.
Okay.
Would you call it like a supermajority?
Well,
No
that
need.
is- No, there's no need. Just reaching consensus, which you're going to define as 7 votes out of 9.
Okay.
Sure, we can. Oh, go ahead, Brooke.
Let me just comment specifically on that. I have had people express concern that 3 members could stonewall the entire, like if 6 agree and, I mean, I'm really hopeful that everyone's going to collaborate. But this has been articulated to me. I don't know that there's an answer to it, but I just want to say it out loud.
We did talk about that, or at least I talked about it with people. I don't see any other way around it. If
Right.
not, then we just don't have this group.
Right.
And then select board just works with planning and we just try to figure it out.
Yes.
Because that always could happen.
Yep. Yeah. I don't think we can change anything. I agree, but I just,
It was a different world back in the 90s. But comp plan, we ran that on consensus and we would hammer away. We had a lot of things that were contentious and we hammered away at it in various work groups until everyone said, well, it's not exactly what I want, but I could live with that. And it took a lot of work, but, and I'm saying, I think it was a bit different time. I don't think the stakes.
100%?
It wasn't 100%. It was 100% that everyone was like, well, you know what? We can't keep talking about this. We're good enough with that. So it was, but it took a long time.
I think that's called compromise.
Well, it is, but that we don't see a lot of that today.
No, we sure don't. No, we sure don't.
That's what I'm saying. It was a different world, but that was and that was sort of the tack that we took, and I think it was fairly successful. So.
I think there's going to be a lot more reasoned discussion, and I'm really excited for this to get started so that people can actually get to the table and start having the debate.
I think we have some good things to add to it, and we'll hear from planning board Monday. Getting those from them for next Wednesday. Is there anything else tonight?
Mr. Chair?
Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm going to get to Rick Atherton too. Go ahead, John.
I'm sorry, I'm just rereading this 5A. What happens if there's a vote to be taken and one member is hospitalized or ill? Can the vote take place?
Is that when we have the
Attending
believe-
100% of the meetings where
Back up.
critical votes are taken?
the alternate,
Yeah.
can the alternate step in?
Yes.
That would be,
So then do you need an alternate for planning, FinCom?
No, each group who appoints.
Right, that's what,
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Now the at-large, do we have a
alternates?
alternate for at-large? Because the other group, it makes more sense.
I'm too tired to think about it tonight. Good
Okay.
news, we don't have to decide, but I'd like to
Just think about
think
it.
it through a little bit more, what the possible ramifications are.
Mhm.
It's a good question.
Thank you, John.
So do you want me to redline this?
Yeah,
Is Rick still on?
Oh, and Rick.
I'm getting there. Yeah, can we go to Rick?
Jason, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Rick.
Thanks. Just an observation on your conversation. I think it's helpful to remind us all how this all came about. At the town meeting, Article 42 proposed that short-term rentals should be allowed everywhere. And at the town meeting itself, I think Mr. Iverson recognized that that proposal, which had been, I hope I have my numbers right, unanimously proposed by the planning board and maybe unanimously proposed by the finance committee. I think Dave recognized it was not going to pass. And what you're doing is going through a very elaborate process. And I hope it leads to a good process and solution. In the meantime, I think every citizens concerned about this issue recognize that going into whatever town meeting, citizen articles, the same problem that happened last time can occur. This is very difficult. So I appreciate all your efforts on the nuances. I'm not sure until we get their recommendation, frankly, that it makes a whole lot of difference. The difference is what they end up recommending and whether or not it's acceptable to enough of the citizens to pass or not to pass. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you, Rick. Anybody else online? Any other comments from the board? Another shot at it Wednesday. Okay, on to committee reports. Anybody have anything?
Jason, I have an announcement if that's okay.
Sure, go ahead.
I wanted to let you all know and let the community know that I've been accepted to and plan to attend the Massachusetts School of Law in Andover, Mass, starting this August, mid-August. As such, I'll be resigning from the select board. My planned last in-person meeting will be August 17th. And from there, I will attend remotely and when possible through November 2nd. My understanding and hope is that on November 8th, the town will hold a special election. And I'll let you and Libby update the community on the specifics for that will follow. If you would indulge me for a second, I'd just like to say that becoming a lawyer has been an aspiration of mine for a very long time. And I now have the time and resources to dedicate to it. I'm beyond excited for this new adventure. I want to thank the community for your support in electing me to serve on the board in June of 2020. It has been my honor to serve, especially during the unprecedented pandemic with so many new challenges facing the community. I grew up on Nantucket, and from a very young age, I have given my time and energy to make Nantucket a better, healthier place for all of us. My motivations for service have been very simple. I want to give back to the community that has given me and my family so much. This is a really wonderful opportunity for anyone who's ever been interested in serving on the select board to give it a shot and see. It's I think a 6 or 7 month term from November until the following election. My term would have ended in 2023. And of course, I'm always happy to answer anyone's questions about the process of service. To my fellow board members and to Libby, I want to thank you so much for your support in making this decision. It's an opportunity that I simply couldn't pass by. So thank you very much.
Congratulations
Yeah, definitely.
on being accepted. I thought you'd be smarter than wanting to become a lawyer, but no offense, John.
Thank you, Matt. That means a lot.
Well, thank you, Melissa. It's bittersweet because when you mentioned it to me, I said, I'm sorry, but I'm just going to mourn for a minute. I'm not happy about this, and I am happy for you, but I just really enjoy the conversation, everything you bring to the select board. So, but I'm over it, and I'm happy for you, and thank you for everything that you've done for this community, school board here. There's a lot more than that, and
Thank
you're
you,
not leaving
Jason.
tonight, but just want to thank you.
Board of Health.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Board of Health during a pandemic.
During a
Yeah.
pandemic, yeah.
So, Libby and I have talked about this, and so there's the state election is November 8th, and Libby has been talking to the town clerk about having them both at the same time, and we're working out the kinks of that from the town clerk's end of counting mail-ins and all that kind of stuff. So I think you said you're resigning, Melissa, but you would stay on until November 2nd. That would be
Yeah, that would be my last meeting. School starts for me the week of the 15th of August. So I'm hopeful that I'll be able to be at the in-person meeting on the 17th. That would be my last in-person meeting. From there, from September and October, I will be participating remotely. My classes go until about 5:45 on Wednesday evenings, and then I start my drive back.
okay. One thing that we don't know, but we're working on. So we're gonna have this as an agenda item next week to be able to vote on to have an election for a select board member on the date. So we'll officially we'll do that next week. And by then, Libby, I think you said you might know from town clerk when you can pull papers and all that information, how that'll play out. I think that's something people are going to want to know pretty fast. It's like, okay, well, this is a little rare, and so you would be running for a select board position for a 6-month term. Libby, is there anything else that we need to review or talk about now?
No, we talked about, and we ran this by John too. In a way, it's just easier to have 2 elections on the same day, because I mean, you'd vote at the same time and all. But there are some logistics with the town clerk, because mail-in voting by mail has just been approved. So there will be additional mailings, because it's all separate. So there's that additional work. But I personally think it's a little confusing to have 2 elections kind of near each other, but I don't know. It just seems more manageable in a way to have it all. Plus, there's the school logistics where now we're disrupting school by having an election on a different day when they're already closed on November 8th.
So when you walk in and go to the very nice volunteers who donate their time to do that, you would get 2 sheets of paper at the same time, or do you have to come back in and go?
I think you just get them both at the same time. They'll have to have 2 separate voting lists.
Okay. All right. I'm sure there'll be more questions that we can answer next week. Melissa, anything else?
Nothing else for me. Thank you.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor by roll call? Dawn?
Aye.
Brooke?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
And Jason, aye. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Thank you, Melissa. Libby, I had just a quick idea. I'm sorry this is afterwards, but could we do a Jack Gardner award for civic duty or something like that we give out each year? I just wanted to
got a thing to sign here, guys, before we go.
Yeah, just a thought. Yeah.